Chapter 3441. The blue vertical mark. Seeing Sakyamuni risk his life, Zhuowen couldn't help but narrow his eyes and smile coldly. Next, Zhuowen took out the Ho-E Divine Bow and Ho-E Divine Arrow. He knocked the Ho-E Divine Arrow on the bowstring and pulled the bowstring into a full moon. Bang! Zhuowen loosened his fingers, and the Ho-E Divine Arrow tore through the air, instantly tearing through the void. Wherever it passed, space-time twisted and shattered. At this moment, Sakyamuni was about to approach Zhuowen, and then he actually did this. He cursed Zhuowen for being too treacherous. Sakyamuni naturally knew how terrifying the Ho-E Divine Arrow was. He actually didn't want to take it head-on. However, the Ho-E Divine Arrow was so close and so fast that he had no time to dodge. He could only take it head-on. Puchi! The Ho-E Divine Arrow pierced through Sakyamuni's right arm and came out of his right shoulder blade. Blood splattered everywhere. And then it exploded. Sakyamuni's right arm exploded. Sakyamuni vomited a mouthful of blood. He was sent flying by the terrifying force of the Ho-E Divine Arrow like a falling butterfly. It was a miserable sight. Zhuowen didn't have any intention of stopping after shooting that arrow. He took out Ho-Ye's divine arrows one after another. Each arrow was pulled into a full moon and shot out explosively. 3 more arrows shot out. One of them blew up Sakyamuni's left arm, while the other 2 blew up Sakyamuni's legs. Sakyamuni screamed in agony. Blood splattered everywhere. His 4 limbs were all destroyed in an instant. It was too painful. Sakyamuni kept flying back. At this moment, his 4 limbs were all destroyed. He looked very miserable, like a pufferfish. However, as Sakyamuni retreated, his broken limbs began to regenerate. Although the recovery speed was not as fast as before, it was still faster than Zhuowen. Zhuowen's eyes were solemn. He took out another Ho-E Divine Arrow and pulled it into a full moon. This time, he aimed at Sakyamuni's chest. This arrow was *enough to blow apart Sakyamuni's chest. When Sakyamuni saw that Zhuowen still had Ho-Ye's divine arrows, he couldn't help but curse F*CKU. Unfortunately, Zhuowen was very calm. His gaze was calm as he pulled the Ho-E Divine Arrow to a full moon and loosened his fingers. Instantly, the Ho-E Divine Arrow pierced through the air and pierced Sakyamuni's chest. The powerful thrust caused Sakyamuni's chest to explode. Moreover, the energy from the explosion was continuous. Sakyamuni's body was instantly destroyed. Sakura was now only left with a head. He glared at Zhuowen, and the curses from his mouth almost never stopped. However, although Sakyamuni kept cursing, he was very alert. He quickly retreated and put a large distance between himself and Zhuowen. Zhuowen wouldn't let Sakyamuni go so easily. He took out another Ho-E Divine Arrow and loosened his fingers. The arrow shot out again. Sakura looked at the Ho-E Godly Arrow that was getting closer and closer. His eyes were filled with despair as he watched the Ho-E Godly Arrow pierce through his glabella. Then his head exploded. Zhuowen put away the Ho-E Divine Arrow and looked at the head that had exploded into a mist of blood. He sighed softly. He knew that Sakyamuni was completely done for. This time, he had completely destroyed Sakyamuni's body. His soul had also been completely destroyed by the last arrow. Zhuowen didn't believe that Sakyamuni could survive. Just as Zhuowen was about to leave the space-time tunnel, he discovered that a dark blue vertical mark had appeared where Sakyamuni had fallen. This dark blue vertical mark was like a narrowed blue eye. It seemed to be secretly watching Zhuowen. This blue vertical mark was very inconspicuous. It had practically merged into the surrounding space-time passageway. If it were not for the fact that Zhuowen's divine sense was very powerful, he would not have been able to discover this obscure blue vertical mark. Zhuowen thought of something and waved his right hand. Immediately, a blazing blade of light shot out and blasted towards the dark blue vertical mark. The dark blue vertical mark sensed danger and tried to dodge. However, it was still affected by the blade of light. Then a heart-wrenching scream sounded. Zhuowen was very familiar with this scream. It was Sakyamana's voice. This guy is actually still alive. Zhuowen was stunned. He found it unbelievable. He had completely destroyed Sakyamana's body and soul, leaving no trace behind. However, Sakyamuni was still alive. Was this guy an unkillable cockroach? Whoosh! The dark blue vertical mark knew that it had been exposed. It decisively fled and rushed out of the space-time tunnel. Zhuowen snorted coldly and chased after the dark blue vertical mark. Moreover, he discovered that as the dark blue vertical mark fled, the silhouette of a figure slowly appeared. First, it was the white bones, then the blood vessels, then the blood, and finally the pure white skin. The human form that had suddenly recovered was Sakyamuni. Zhuowen was shocked. He felt that Sakyamuni was too strange. How could he recover like this? Was he still human? Zhuowen felt a sense of danger. Sakyamuni's body was too special. In his opinion, he was almost indestructible. No matter how many times he killed him, he wouldn't die. He had never seen such a strange phenomenon before. He had a feeling that if he didn't completely destroy Sakyamuni this time, Sakyamuni would very likely become powerful in the future. When that time came, he might not be able to kill Sakyamuni. Thinking of this, the killing intent in Zhuowen's eyes became even more terrifying. He took out Ho Yi's arrow again. When Sakura saw Zhuowen taking out Ho Yi's arrow again, he was so scared that he pissed his pants. His fleeing speed also became much faster. This time, Zhuowen shot out 8 Ho Yi's arrow in an instant, and Sakyamuni was completely annihilated. However, after Sakyamuni was destroyed, the strange dark blue vertical mark appeared again, and Sakyamuni came back to life. After Zhuowen killed Sakyamuni for the 5th time, he finally focused on the dark blue vertical mark. He knew that the reason Sakyamuni could keep coming back to life was very likely because of the dark blue vertical mark. He probably had to destroy the dark blue vertical mark before Sakyamuni could be completely destroyed. However, after Sakyamuni was destroyed, the dark blue vertical mark hid itself in the starry sky without any aura. Zhuowen's divine telekinesis couldn't capture it. Zhuowen's divine telekinesis could only capture it when the dark blue vertical mark began to come back to life. However, Sakyamuni had already begun to come back to life by then. Zhuowen was confused. What was with the dark blue vertical mark? His divine telekinesis couldn't capture it. However, after several pursuits, Zhuowen had more or less grasped the exact location of the dark blue vertical mark. The moment Sakyamuni was destroyed for the 6th time, Zhuowen quickly shot out a blade of light from the starry sky in front of him to the left. Then he heard a blood-curdling scream, and his spiritual force actually caught a glimpse of the blue vertical mark. He knew that his blade of light had hit the hidden dark blue vertical mark. The dark blue vertical mark looked very dim at this moment, and there were even some cracks on its surface. Chapter 3442. Junior Brother Zhuowen's eyes lit up. He knew that the blue vertical scar was Sakyamuni's weakness. As long as he could completely destroy it, Sakyamuni would be dead for sure. With that thought, Zhuowen took out the Ho Yi divine arrow again and drew it into the shape of a full moon. He aimed it at the blue vertical scar and unleashed its terrifying power. The blue vertical scar also sensed the terrifying killing intent from the arrow and actually began to tremble like a human. "Zhuowen, I beg for mercy. Please let me live. I'll agree to anything. Sakyamuni's terrified voice came from the blue vertical scar. Without a doubt, he sensed the intense threat of death. He knew very well that if the Ho-E divine arrow really hit the blue vertical scar, he would die for sure. There would be no chance for him to come back to life. It hadn't been easy for him to cultivate to this level and even evolve his Tao foundation to perfection. His future potential was so great that he would definitely be able to transcend this universe. It would be a pity if he died just like that. Sakyamuni wasn't willing to die just like that. Zhuowen was indifferent. Sakyamuni was too much of a threat. He was only a late-stage Skirich master, but he was already so powerful. Zhuowen didn't doubt that if he allowed Sakyamuni to continue developing, he might not be able to suppress Sakyamuni in the future. This was a kind of intuition, and Zhuowen trusted it very much. Sakyamuni, what good will it do me to spare you? Given our relationship, we're already like fire and water. We won't rest until one of us is dead. Today, you will die without a doubt. Zhuowen's voice was cold as he released 2 fingers. The Ho-E divine arrow tore through the air and exploded with powerful energy, causing the surrounding space to distort. Moreover, wherever the Ho-E divine arrow passed, it set off terrifying shockwaves that formed a long white mist belt behind it. It was like a white path. Sakyamuni's pupils constricted as he watched the Ho-E divine arrow approach. He screamed in shock and quickly retreated. Unfortunately, no matter how fast Sakyamuni retreated, how could he be faster than Ho-Yi's arrow? A short while later, the Ho-E divine arrow caught up to the blue vertical scar. Sakyamuni was in despair. He didn't even retreat. He knew he was done for. His final struggle was useless. Right when the arrow was about to hit the deep blue mark, a pale hand reached out from the void and grabbed the arrow. Then the pale white hand squeezed gently, and Ho-Yi's godly arrow collapsed. It was destroyed just like that. Zhuowen was dumbfounded as he looked at the pale palm in disbelief. Ho-Yi's god arrow was now so powerful that even Lord Skysplit feared it. However, the hand that had appeared out of nowhere had easily grabbed Ho-Yi's arrow and crushed it to dust. Just how much strength was required to do that? Even Sakyamuni, who was still recovering with difficulty, was dumbfounded. He also found it hard to believe that the sturdy Ho-E divine arrow had been crushed so easily. It was like crushing tofu. It was truly unbelievable. However, Sakyamuni quickly relaxed. He knew that the pale white hand had helped him block Ho-Yi's arrow to save him. Junior brother, I've finally found you. Then, a joyful voice came from the void. Then, a figure slowly walked out from within the void. It was a pale-faced young man in ice armor. It was Bing Hui, who had been sent by the Ice Fiend Monarch to find the undying Tao root. Sakyamuni was stunned when he heard Bing Hui call him junior brother. What was going on? Since when did he have such an awesome senior brother? Zhuowen was also stunned. He also found it a little strange. He had some understanding of Sakyamuni and knew that Sakyamuni's master was Senki In, the previous sect master of the 10 Ultimate In Corpse sect. However, Senki In had suddenly died. When did Senki In have such a powerful disciple? However, Zhuowen didn't think too much about it. He looked at Bing Hui with fear. He could feel that Bing Hui's strength was terrifying. It was far beyond the peak of Lord Skysplit. The pressure he gave him was even more terrifying than the green-furred corpse. Zhuowen was bewildered. When did such a terrifying figure appear in the Xianmi heavenly region? Ah, so it's senior brother. You came at the right time. I was almost killed. Senior brother, you have to help me. Sakyamuni's next words made Zhuowen dizzy. From the first time Sakyamuni saw this young man, Zhuowen could tell that Sakyamuni didn't know this young man at all. But now, this guy was acting so familiar with him, as if he had really become this young man's junior brother. Zhuowen also knew that Sakyamuni was sucking up to this young man to save him. Bing Hui was stunned. He looked at Sakyamuni's friendly manner with a strange gaze. He asked subconsciously, "Junior brother, do you know me? Do you know who I am?" This time, it was Sakyamuni's turn to be stunned. He cursed in his heart. "You don't even know me? Then why are you calling me junior brother?" Zhuowen was also speechless. What the hell was going on? Was this young man who had suddenly appeared a lunatic? Was he randomly acknowledging a junior brother? For the sake of confirming whether this young man was crazy or not, Zhuowen asked instinctively, "Senior brother, do you know me?" Bing Hui turned around and glanced coldly at Zhuowen. He said, "How would I know who you are? But since you dared to kill my junior brother, then I'll let you know why flowers are so red." Zhuowen was speechless. Zhuowen was speechless. So this fellow isn't crazy. Could it be that Sakyamuni is really this fellow's junior brother? Junior brother. Master is one of the 3 kings of the variant ghost clan, the Ice Fiend King. He sensed the aura of the undying Tao root on you, and specially ordered me to take you away. Are you willing to come with me and become a disciple of the Ice Fiend King? Bing Hui paid no further attention to Zhuowen. In his eyes, Zhuowen's strength was truly too weak, and he was simply like an ant. So, he didn't really care about Zhuowen. Even though Sakyamuni was still in a daze, he knew that since this fellow's strength was so formidable, then his master was definitely an even more terrifying fellow. So, how could he refuse when such an expert wanted to take him as a disciple? So, Sakyamuni hurriedly agreed. Bing Hui was very satisfied when he saw Sakyamuni agree. He flicked his sleeve and actually repaired the dark blue vertical mark. On the other hand, Sakyamuni's body recovered completely in a short period of time as well. He hurriedly cupped his hands and bowed to Bing Hui. "Sakyamuni greets senior brother. So, you're called Sakyamuni. That's a good name." Bing Hui nodded and spoke with satisfaction. Sakyamuni forced out a smile. So, this so-called senior brother of his didn't know him at all, and he only found out his name now. This caused Sakyamuni to laugh bitterly and remain silent. On the other hand, Zhuowen had fallen into deep thought, and his gaze was filled with fear as he stared fixedly at Bing Hui. Chapter 3443. Your Honor, after Zhuowen received the complete inheritance of Pangu, he learned about the 100 realms of the outer realm through the artifact spirit of the heaven splitting axe. As for the legendary Pangu who had created this starry sky, his real name was Panyu. He was a member of the Pangu clan in the 100 territories outside the realm. The alternate ghost tribe was also a powerful tribe that ruled over one of the 100 realms of the outer realm. Moreover, the alternate ghost tribe was one of the 3 tribes that had destroyed the Pangu clan. They had a deep grudge against the Pangu clan. Zhuowen originally thought that he would only encounter the alternate ghost tribe after leaving this galaxy and entering the 100 realms of the outer realm. He didn't expect to encounter them so early. This made Zhuowen's heart sink. Moreover, this alternate ghost tribe member, who had suddenly appeared, possessed unfathomable strength. Zhuowen was very wary of him. At this moment, Sakyamuni had already completely recovered. However, his aura was very weak, and his strength had been greatly reduced. After all, he had been killed by Zhuowen so many times, so he had naturally used up all the energy in his body. Right now, he probably wouldn't even be able to withstand a single attack from Zhuowen. After Bing Hui and Sakyamuni communicated secretly for a while, Zhuowen saw Sakyamuni glaring at him with hatred in his eyes. After that, Bing Hui also looked over, his eyes filled with killing intent and coldness. Zhuowen had a bad feeling in his heart. He knew that this expert from the Divergent Ghost clan must have been instigated by Sakura and was planning to attack him. When he thought of this, Zhuowen decided to retreat. He knew that he wouldn't be able to kill Sakyamuni today. This alternate ghost tribe member was definitely a supreme being at the half-step heaven crushing stage. Moreover, he was an extremely powerful half-step heaven crushing stage cultivator. With Zhuowen's current strength, it was impossible for him to contend with him. Whoosh! In just an instant, Zhuowen used the Fate Space-Time Annihilation. A mysterious purple river swept out from the void and enveloped his entire body. At the same time, Zhuowen also instantly disappeared into the space-time tunnel. Sakyamuni's expression changed when he saw Zhuowen running away without a word. "Senior brother, you can't let this piece of trash go. If you hadn't arrived in time, I would have been killed by this piece of trash," Sakyamuni said to Bing Hui anxiously. Bing Hui patted Sakyamuni's shoulder and said, "Don't worry, junior brother. This kid can't escape from the palm of my hand. To put it bluntly, I am an existence that stands at the peak of this starry sky. There are almost no local creatures that are my match. This ant hasn't even reached the half-step heaven crushing stage. Killing him is far too easy. Now, come to my small world first. I will capture that ant and let you do whatever you want with him." Sakyamuni nodded. He did not doubt Bing Hui's words at all. He could feel that Bing Hui was terrifyingly powerful. If he attacked, Zhuowen would be dead for sure. After Sakyamuni entered Bing Hui's small world, he stomped his right foot and disappeared on the spot. At this moment, Zhuowen had already sent out the space-time roulette. Moreover, he was madly using the power of space-time to fly away. He had almost reached the fastest speed he had ever fled in his life. However, the more he fled, the more uneasy he felt. "And do you think you can escape?" A cold voice sounded. Then, Zhuowen discovered that an extremely powerful wind was sweeping toward him from behind. In an instant, it swept toward his back. Zhuowen didn't even think about it. He immediately used the power of space-time and leaned his body to the side, narrowly avoiding the attack behind him. Then he saw that the space he had just been in was actually warping and collapsing. It was as if there had been a huge explosion. Everything was annihilated into nothingness. Zhuowen's expression changed. Bing Hui's attack was truly too terrifying. It wasn't difficult for him to imagine that if he had taken that attack head-on, he would have very likely suffered heavy injuries. "Huh, your reaction isn't bad. You actually managed to dodge my attack. And if it were any other time, I wouldn't even bother to kill you. However, this time, it's my junior brother's request. I can only reluctantly do it. It can be said that it's your honor to be killed by me. You must remember that the person who killed you is called Bing Hui. He's from the Deviant Ghost clan. When you reach the Netherworld and the King of Hell asks about you, you can tell him my name." Bing Hui appeared not far behind Zhuowen. His hands were clasped behind his back as he walked in the air step by step. He looked very leisurely and indifferent. In Bing Hui's eyes, Zhuowen was just an ant. It wouldn't take much effort to kill him. Therefore, he didn't care at all. Bing Hui blasted out another palm. A huge illusory palm appeared in the void. It seemed to defy the rules and suddenly fell down, smashing everything into fine powder and countless pieces. This palm was too fast. Before Zhuowen could react, it had already arrived behind Zhuowen. It was very close. Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy. He knew that he couldn't dodge this palm. He had no other choice but to take this palm head-on. Zhuowen activated the Pangu's sacred body and burst out all the energy. His whole body was flowing with crystal-clear light. Zhuowen suddenly punched out. His fist was sparkling and translucent, and it emitted a resplendent radiance like jade. Bang! When the fist and the palm collided, there was a terrifying blast. Then, Zhuowen's right fist exploded. His body was then hit hard by the palm. Countless clouds of blood flowed out of his body. He looked very miserable. Zhuowen spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backward. He was very embarrassed. His face was pale, and his body was almost cracked. Blood flowed out. At this moment, Zhuowen only felt heart-wrenching pain. His whole body was weak, and he couldn't move. A sense of despair rose in his heart. Bing Hui's strength was too terrifying. He was even more terrifying than the green-haired mummy. He wondered if Bing Hui had broken through the sky. Otherwise, how could he be so powerful? Your aura is really strange. It gives me a familiar feeling. Bing Hui stopped and looked at Zhuowen, who was not far away. He frowned and looked at the bloody Zhuowen. When Zhuowen activated the Pangu's sacred body, he felt that the energy in Zhuowen's body was very familiar. It gave him a familiar feeling. Maybe it's an illusion. Bing Hui shook his head and laughed. He looked at Zhuowen with an unconcealable arrogance in his eyes. He clenched his right hand and slapped down. He wanted to kill Zhuowen completely. In his opinion, Zhuowen was already a dead man. He didn't care if he was familiar with the energy in his body. He could kill him with one slap. Bing Hui slapped out again. It was very casual, and his eyes were full of disdain. In his opinion, this slap was more than enough to kill Zhuowen. However, when Bing Hui's palm landed, his hair stood on end. He felt that something was wrong. Chapter 3444. Exposed, it was a giant phantom. It was huge, as if it could support the heavens and the earth. It was extraordinary, especially the terrifying aura of the giant phantom, which made people feel that it was ancient and powerful. It was as if it was a powerful creature from ancient times. Boom! The giant phantom struck out with its palm and shattered Bing Hui's palm. Then, it charged toward Bing Hui fearlessly. When the giant phantom got close to Bing Hui, it self-detonated. Terrifying waves of energy surged over like an endless tide, drowning Bing Hui. Bing Hui didn't even have time to react before he was completely enveloped by the self-detonation energy. He couldn't even see his body. Puchi! Zhuowen spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale, and he had a splitting headache. It was as if he would faint at any time. He was already seriously injured by Bing Hui. Now that he had forcefully used Panga's Saint Aura, the backlash was too strong. He was too weak now. I have to leave here and go to the heaven-accessing secret land. Zhuowen forcefully endured the splitting headache. He took out an array flag and threw it out. A teleportation energy enveloped him, and he instantly disappeared on the spot. This teleportation formation was secretly set up by Zhuowen after he left the battlefield of the stars. He was afraid that the eastern camp of the stars would seal the teleportation formation again after he left. At that time, he would have to take a big detour if he wanted to return to the battlefield of the stars. Therefore, he had set up a backup plan in advance. Zhuowen planned to use this backup plan after he finished off the Xianmi heavenly domain and went to the alchemy array Dao region to get the divine medicine he wanted. Unfortunately, Bing Hui's arrival had ruined all his plans, forcing him to leave the Xianmi heavenly domain in advance. The heaven-accessing secret land was the gathering place of all the lords of the heaven-accessing realm in this part of the universe. It was a world above the other heavenly domains. Zhuowen knew that there were many half-step, heaven-shattering experts in the heaven-accessing secret land. Moreover, the heaven-accessing secret land was very hidden. If one wanted to enter it, they had to have a pass. Zhuowen's access token was given to him by the Black King. so it was easy for him to enter the heaven accessing place. Bing Hui was not from this starry sky, so he certainly did not have a pass token. He would be blocked outside the heaven accessing place. Zhuowen knew very well that the heaven accessing place was the safest place now. When Zhuowen was wrapped up in the teleportation light and teleported away, a loud shout came from the center of the explosion. Then, the terrifying explosive energy was frozen by a terrifying coldness, and finally stopped. In the end, the explosive energy that was frozen by the terrifying cold air shattered into countless ice shards. Bing Hui sauntered out, his face grimaced as he was contemplating. That was the holy power of Pangu, the unique power of the Pangu family. I can't believe that Ant knows this Upanishad. Is he a member of the Pangu clan? Bing Hui narrowed his eyes. He was too familiar with the Pangu clan. The decline of the Pangu clan was largely due to the alien ghost clan and some other clans. Moreover, the alien ghost clan had killed countless members of the Pangu clan. They had almost wiped out the entire Pangu clan. In the past few years, whenever they found out anything about the Pangu family, the other ghost clans, and the other clans that had grudges against the Pangu family would strike mercilessly and exterminate the surviving members of the Pangu family. But now, Bing Hui had found a surviving member of the Pangu clan in the lower world, which made him feel very uneasy. I remember now. No wonder this starry sky is somewhat familiar. It was the place where a fellow called Pan Yu of the Pangu clan was exiled. Speaking of which, it's all thanks to Pan Yu that this starry sky was able to develop to such an extent so quickly. Bing Hui thought of something. He suddenly realized that Bing Hui was one of the people who had imprisoned Pan Luo. However, at that time, Bing Hui hadn't even broken through the sky yet. He was just a nobody. Of course, Pan Yu wasn't a monstrous genius of the Pangu clan. Therefore, there was only one heaven-breaking realm expert among the group of people who had imprisoned Pan Yu. After Pan Yu died, in this starry sky, they left and didn't pay much attention to him. This man isn't Pan Yu. Pan Yu should have died back then. Moreover, the bloodline of the Pangu clan in him is very thin. I'm afraid he's a little guy who has received Pan Yu's inheritance. Even though he's a fake, I still underestimated him and actually let him escape. This kid must die. As long as it's a member of the Pangu clan, I won't let him go even if he has the slightest bloodline. The killing intent on Bing Hui's face was piercingly cold. This was the first time he had released such a terrifying killing intent since he had appeared. It was all because he had received Pan Yu's inheritance. The deep blue mark on Bing Hui's forehead began to twist and turn into an icy blue eyeball. The eyeball kept moving and finally locked onto a direction. The deep blue pupil emitted a strange blue light. This kid escaped pretty quickly. He's already been teleported so far away. However, he won't be able to escape from me. The deep blue eyeball on Bing Hui's forehead kept opening and closing. He accelerated with all his might and charged toward the starry sky battlefield. When Zhuowen returned to the eastern camp of the starry sky battlefield through the teleportation formation, he found that the teleportation formation of the eastern camp had been sealed again. He sighed softly and thought to himself that he should have made more preparations back then. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to escape this time. Zhuowen didn't care about the doubtful gazes of the eastern camp. After all, Zhuowen was covered in blood and looked very strange. It was difficult not to attract attention. Zhuowen took out the space-time roulette and summoned the Thunderfire Sword. He had Xiao He control the space-time roulette and charge out of the starry sky camp. "Kid, are you all right?" Xiao He controlled the space-time roulette and looked worriedly at Zhuowen, who was covered in blood. "I'm fine." Zhuowen's voice was a little weak. He took out the entry token of the sky-reaching place from the macro world. As soon as the token appeared, a red light flashed out and shot into the depths of the starry sky ahead. Xiao He, follow this red light and keep moving forward. We must enter the sky-reaching place before Bing Hui arrives. Otherwise, we will all die here. Zhuowen said, panting. Xiao He nodded. He also knew the seriousness of the situation. He began to operate the space-time roulette desperately and moved forward at full speed. Zhuowen sat cross-legged on the deck and took out a lot of healing elixirs. He also operated the Pangu's sacred body and began to heal himself. Time was tight. He knew that Bing Hui was very powerful and much faster than him. Bing Hui couldn't teleport into the starry sky battlefield and had to take a long detour to get there. However, given Bing Hui's speed, he would definitely catch up with him, given enough time. Chapter 3445, the heaven accessing place 3 days later. Bing Hui finally arrived at the battlefield of the stars after making a big detour. Bing Hui was very flamboyant and didn't hide his violent aura at all. All the humans in the battlefield of the stars were attracted by his sudden arrival. What a terrifying aura! Who is he? Why do I feel that his aura is even more terrifying than the 4 Dao Masters? All the human practitioners in the camp of the stars looked up at Bing Hui, who was floating in the sky. They were all trembling and discussing secretly. The 3 Dao Masters in the camp of the stars were also attracted and flew out of the camp. The 3 of them were also trembling with fear. They were also intimidated by Bing Hui's powerful aura. Their eyes were filled with fear as they looked at Bing Hui. My friend, may I know who you are looking for? Yao Jianyuan cupped his hands carefully at Bing Hui. He saw that Bing Hui scanned the entire battlefield of the stars with his divine consciousness as soon as he arrived. He guessed that he was looking for someone. Bing Hui scanned the area with his divine consciousness and didn't find Zhuowen. Then his eyes fell on Yao Jianyuan. Yao Jianyuan trembled when he felt Bing Hui's gaze. The pressure this person gave him was so terrifying that it made his scalp tingle. He knew that this person was definitely a top expert. He was probably a half step into the heaven-breaking realm, which was even more terrifying than the master of the heaven-reaching realm. Thinking of this, Yao Jianyuan was terrified and lowered his attitude toward Bing Hui. He thought that this person in front of him should also be from the heaven-accessing place. Yao Jianyuan felt a dull pain in his cheeks as he recalled the scene of Zhuowen's brutality. He also thought that Zhuowen, who was disguised as a middle-aged man, was an expert from the heaven-accessing place. Now, he didn't have a good impression of the experts from the heaven-accessing place, but he was terrified and didn't dare to offend them. After all, he had just suffered. Have you seen this person before? Bing Hui's eyes were cold. He waved his sleeve, and the image of the middle-aged man disguised by Zhuowen appeared in the void. During the battle between Zhuowen and Sakyamuni, Zhuowen had always appeared as a middle-aged man, so Sakyamuni didn't recognize him at first. Only after Zhuowen shot out Zhuowen's arrow did Sakyamuni confirm his identity. When Yao Jianyuan saw the middle-aged man in the image, his pupils shrank. He lowered his head, feeling conflicted. He could tell that this young man in ice armor was chasing after the middle-aged man. However, Yao Jianyuan was really scared of Zhuowen. Now, he really didn't dare to offend Zhuowen. He knew that if he were to accuse this middle-aged man now, and this middle-aged man didn't die in the end, then he would be in trouble. At that time, he wouldn't just be beaten up, he might have to pay the price with his life. Bing Hui's observation skills were amazing. When Yao Jianyuan saw the image of the middle-aged man, he clearly saw the change in Yao Jianyuan's expression. You know him? Bing Hui asked coldly. Your Excellency, I don't know him. Yao Jianyuan shook his head. He didn't want to get involved in the battle between 2 experts. For him, it would only be disadvantageous. Bing Hui grabbed Yao Jinyuan's neck and lifted him up. He said coldly, "It's a great sin to lie to me. Since you can't tell me, I don't mind killing you first, and then all your people here. If you don't tell me, there will be a lot of people who will." Bing Hui released a strong qi power, accompanied by a horrible killing intent. Yao Jianyuan was trembling with fear. His face was pale, and his legs were weak. Yao Jianyuan was scared. He hurriedly begged for mercy. "Your Excellency, I'll tell you, I do know this man. He went to the host area through our starry battlefield, but then he returned to the starry battlefield and went deep into the starry sky a few days ago. I don't know where he went, but I guess he must have gone back to the heaven accessing place. A big shot like him must have come from the heaven accessing place. Your Excellency, if you have a grudge against him, just go to the heaven accessing place." Yao Jianyuan thought that Zhuowen and Bing Hui were both experts from the heaven accessing place, so he directly told Bing Hui his guess. He just wanted the devil in front of him to leave as soon as possible. "Heaven accessing place. Where is that?" Bing Hui asked, frowning. He was not a creature from this starry sky, so he didn't know anything about the geography of this starry sky. "Your Excellency, you don't know about the heaven accessing place?" Yao Jianyuan asked incredulously. "What? Is there a problem? Now tell me the location of the heaven accessing place. Otherwise, you and all the people here will die," Bing Hui said with cold eyes. Yao Jianyuan broke out in a cold sweat. He had to tell Bing Hui the location of the heaven accessing place, and gave him a star map enthusiastically. His cultivation was at the middle stage of the heaven accessing master. He had joined the heaven accessing place a long time ago and had been there many times. He was very familiar with its location. However, as the doctrine master of the starry sky battlefield, he needed to stay here for a long time to prevent the invasion of the alien tribe. Therefore, he didn't stay in the heaven accessing place for long. "You did a good job. I'm in a good mood. Today, all of you here can be spared from death." Bing Hui took the star map and patted Yao Jianyuan. A powerful force poured out, and Yao Jianyuan's face suddenly stiffened. Finally, he screamed and turned into ice chips. After killing Yao Jianyuan, Bing Hui looked coldly at the others on the starry sky battlefield. He didn't attack again, but flew toward the heaven accessing place. Given his character, he would have destroyed the entire starry sky battlefield in normal times. But now, he needed to chase Zhuowen. Therefore, time was running out, and he didn't want to waste any more time here. After Bing Hui left, the starry sky battlefield was in an uproar. No one had expected that Bing Hui would kill Yao Jianyuan directly. Mei Zian and LV Yelyang, who were standing not far away, looked pale, but they didn't dare to argue with Bing Hui. They were sure that Bing Hui was definitely a half step to breaking Heaven Realm expert. He was not someone they could provoke. "Brother LV, let's stabilize the northern starry sky camp first. We must stabilize the starry sky battlefield as soon as possible," Mei Zian said to LV Yelyang helplessly. LV Yelyang sighed and nodded, but he was in a bad mood. Zhuowen sat on the deck of the space-time wheel. His body emitted a sparkling light. His injuries were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Of course, Zhuowen recovered so quickly because, in addition to the Panga's sacred body, he also had a large number of healing elixirs. Zhuowen's injuries were so serious that it made people's hair stand on end. If other doctrine masters suffered such serious injuries, they would have died long ago. However, Zhuowen was still alive, all thanks to his powerful physique. Boy, we're almost there. Chapter 3446. The Hunchwoman stood up after replying to Xiao He. Most of his injuries had healed. His body that was covered in injuries couldn't be seen at all. His flesh surged with multicolored light, extremely resplendent, flickering like starlight, inextinguishable and eternal. Zhuowen was excited because he found that although his Pango's sacred body had been badly beaten, he had also gained a lot of benefits. After his body had healed, his aura and strength had improved. Zhuowen was surprised and knew that his Pango's sacred body had evolved further in adversity. Although Zhuowen's Pango's sacred body was still at the peak of the 8-star level, this life-or-death crisis had given him a deeper understanding of the use of his Pango's sacred body. After all, Zhuowen's Pango's sacred body had just reached the peak of the 8-star level. It could be said that his Pango's sacred body had undergone an earth-shaking qualitative change. The sudden increase in strength made Zhuowen very unfamiliar with the use of his Pango's sacred body. At least for a short time, his control of his Pango's sacred body was still in a rusty state. Zhuowen knew that it would take time to completely familiarize himself with the qualitative change of his Pango's sacred body. But this time, in a life-or-death crisis, he had exerted all the power of his Pango's sacred body. Although he had ended up in a miserable state, he had gained a lot of benefits. He had familiarized himself with the qualitative change of his Pango's sacred body in advance. Although the level of his Pango's sacred body had not changed, his strength had doubled. He could fully exert all the power of his Pango's sacred body. Zhuowen put away the inhibition he had set up around him and walked out of the deck. On the deck, Xiaohe was still controlling the space-time roulette. The light emitted by the pass token was completely submerged in the darkness of the starry sky hundreds of miles ahead. Xiaohe was right. The entrance to the heaven-accessing place should be in the darkness of the starry sky. This distance was not far for Zhuowen. He could reach it in 2 hours. As Zhuowen approached, Zhuowen heaved a sigh of relief. He knew that as long as he entered the heaven-accessing place, he could get rid of Bing Hui completely. After all, there were some powerful half-step heaven-crushing realm cultivators in the heaven-accessing realm. If Bing Hui dared to barge in, he would be besieged by all the old monsters in the heaven-accessing realm. No matter how powerful Bing Hui was, he could not be compared with all the old monsters in the heaven-accessing place. When Zhuowen was only a few dozen li away from the entrance, Zhuowen's eyelids twitched, and he felt a strong sense of unease. Zhuowen's pupils constricted. Without even thinking, he controlled the space-time roulette to move to the side. Rumble! The moment Zhuowen shifted the space-time roulette to the side, a terrifying palm descended from the void and slammed into the spot where Zhuowen had been. That part of the starry sky collapsed into chaos. All the laws were in chaos. Black holes that looked like the mouths of giant beasts appeared in the starry sky one after another, devouring everything. Zhuowen's face darkened. Without even thinking, he sped up the space-time roulette and fled forward. He did not need to think to know that only Bing Hui could launch such a fierce attack. However, he did not understand how Bing Hui knew that he was coming to the heaven-accessing realm and caught up with him so quickly. Humph! You can't escape, you ant. Die! Bing Hui's cold voice exploded in the air like countless muffled thunders at the same time. Then, Zhuowen felt an extremely terrifying gust of wind sweeping from the void behind him. The wind blade streaked across his face, leaving behind a bright, bloody scar on his face. Zhuowen's face changed slightly. He shifted the space-time roulette again and barely dodged Bing Hui's second attack. However, Bing Hui's attack was too ferocious. Although the second attack missed, the aftershock still struck Zhuowen's body, causing him to let out a muffled groan and fly out in a sorry state. His face was pale. Damn it! Zhuowen's eyes were fierce. He madly used the space-time power and even began to burn his essence blood. Suddenly, his speed increased greatly. In a flash, he arrived at the darkness in front of him. In the depths of the darkness, he saw a floating dark gate. The dark gate was simple and magnificent, exuding an ancient and vicissitude aura. Zhuowen knew that the dark gate was the entrance to the heaven-accessing realm. In addition, he saw a groove in the center of the dark door. The shape of the groove corresponded to the passage token in his hand. He knew that as long as he put the pass token in the groove, he could open the dark gate. Bing Hui, who was chasing after him, also saw the dark gate. Bing Hui sneered. Then he suddenly struck out with his right hand and sped up his attack. For a moment, powerful attacks surged toward Zhuowen. They were so fast that Zhuowen did not even have a chance to dodge. He could only passively face these terrifying attacks. "You're dead, you ant." Bing Hui's eyes were cold and disdainful. He had done his best. This time, he was confident that he could kill this ant on the spot before he reached the dark gate. Zhuowen sighed softly. His entire body emitted a blazing crystalline light. This light began to condense continuously, forming a terrifying figure that reached the heavens and the earth. Zhuowen used the ultimate ultimacy, Pangu's holy power, again. This time, the Pangu phantom formed. Its aura was even more magnificent and powerful. Moreover, Zhuowen burned his essence blood to make the Pangu phantom more solid and powerful. Boom! As soon as the Panga silhouette appeared, it blocked all of Bing Hui's terrifying wave-like attacks. Boundless energy surged and burst out white light, dispersing the surrounding darkness. The moment the Panga phantom appeared, Zhuowen struggled out of it and decisively approached the dark gate. Bing Hui naturally saw this. He snorted and did not intend to give Zhuowen a chance to approach the dark gate. He attacked decisively. However, the Pangu phantom blocked him. Moreover, as soon as the Pangu phantom approached Bing Hui, it exploded. The energy of the explosion was too terrifying. It covered a large area of the starry sky and annihilated everything in it. The moment the Pangu phantom exploded, Zhuowen arrived in front of the dark gate and pressed the passage token into the groove. Creak! The dark gate opened, and the energy of the explosion spread out and blasted Zhuowen's back. Zhuowen's body burst into a terrifying mist of blood. His body was almost torn apart. However, he rushed into the dark gate at this moment. The moment he rushed into the door of darkness, the door quickly closed. The explosion completely covered the dark gate. However, the energy of the explosion was quickly frozen by a terrifying icy power, turning into countless ice shards. Bing Hui slowly walked out. His face was pale, and his breathing was rapid. The explosion of the Pangu phantom had affected him. Chapter 3447. Sanqing Street. This door is really hard. It didn't break under that explosion. Bing Hui looked at the door of darkness and was surprised to find that it was intact. Bing Hui looked at the groove on the surface of the door of darkness. He knew that the groove should be the keyhole to open the door of darkness. He didn't have a pass token, so he couldn't open the door of darkness in the normal way. Humph! It's just something from the mortal world. I'll break it open. Bing Hui snorted. He clenched his right hand into a fist and punched out. Suddenly, his long hair fluttered, and the cold air around him surged, forming a vast expanse of white. It looked terrifying. Bing Hui's power was so strong that his fist seemed to freeze thousands of miles. The surrounding starry sky was frozen and collapsed by the cold air. Boom! When the punch landed on the door of darkness, a rumbling sound that resembled rolling thunder resounded. It continued to spread in all directions. Then the door of darkness trembled violently, and its surface surged with a strange black light. When the black light surged out, Bing Hui's pupils shrank slightly. He groaned and was repelled by the black light. The door of darkness calmed down again. It was dark and shiny, looking very ordinary. Bing Hui looked dignified. He was wrong. The door of darkness in front of him looked ordinary, but it was extraordinary. He couldn't break through the door of darkness with his full strength. The door of darkness wasn't damaged at all. Binghui was shocked. He didn't expect that there would be such a hard material in the mortal world. It was incredible. Humph! I don't believe that I can't break this door today. Binghui's eyes were cold. If he didn't know that Zhuowen had obtained the legacy of Panyu, he might not have been so serious. If Zhuowen had entered the heaven accessing place, he might not have pursued him and left the starry sky directly. But now, he knew that the blood of the Pangu clan flowed in Zhuowen's body. He couldn't sit by and do nothing. He must kill all the remaining members of the Pangu clan. Thinking of this, Binghui opened his right palm and held it up. Instantly, a translucent ice crystal floated above his palm. The ice crystal was Binghui's life-bound god artifact. It was forged from a very precious item of extreme cold and extreme een in the outer regions. Although it had not reached the level of Heavenbreaker, it was infinitely close to it. A god artifact of this level would be a top-notch god artifact in any lower realm. There were almost no god artifacts in the lower realms that could compete with it. Bang! Binghui clenched his right hand. Instantly, ice crystals shot out like lightning and landed on the door of darkness. The door of darkness once again emitted a strange and powerful black light. As soon as the black light appeared, the entire door of darkness began to tremble, trying to shake off the ice crystals. However, this ice crystal was not ordinary. It suddenly released a violent icy power, instantly freezing the door of darkness. Upon closer inspection, the surface of the pitch-black door of darkness was covered with a thin layer of frost. Bang, bang, bang. Under Binghui's control, the ice crystals bombarded the door of darkness with high frequency and speed. The door of darkness shook violently. The black light emitted from its surface was completely suppressed by the frost released by the ice crystals. With the continuous bombardment of the ice crystals, the door of darkness shook faster and faster. Small cracks even appeared on its surface. Seeing that his attacks were effective, Binghui's spirits were lifted. He began to bombard the door of darkness even more ferociously. While Binghui was bombarding the door of darkness, Zhuowen fell heavily to the ground the moment he entered the door of darkness. Suppressing the discomfort in his body, Zhuowen realized that the ground here was actually made of mysterious jade stones. They emitted a translucent light, pure white and flawless. Zhuowen struggled to stand up. Only then did he realize that he was in a large square. In front of the square, he saw two huge hollow doors. Moreover, there was a plaque on each of the two hollow doors. The plaque above the left gate had the words Sanqing Street written on it, while the plaque above the right gate had the words Desolate Street written on it. Behind Zhuowen was the closed door of darkness. At this moment, Zhuowen vaguely heard a violent crashing sound from the door of darkness behind him. His expression changed slightly. He knew that Binghui was trying to force the door open. This guy is really haunting me. Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy. He had already guessed that Binghui was chasing him so closely. Binghui probably knew that he practiced the Panga's sacred body and had the bloodline of the Pangu clan. Therefore, Binghui wanted to eliminate him completely. The weapon spirit of the heaven-splitting axe had said that the alien ghost clan was one of the culprits for the destruction of the Pangu clan. Over the years, they had killed many members of the Pangu clan who had been stranded in other places. Thinking of this, Zhuowen was a little worried. He was worried that Binghui would break the door of darkness behind him. I can't just sit here and wait for death. I have to go deep into the heaven-accessing place first. Zhuowen muttered to himself. His eyes fell on the two doors in front of the square. He chose Sanqing Street. Although he didn't know much about the distribution of forces in the heaven accessing place, he could guess that the forces in Chaotic Street were probably the gathering place of the old monsters of the alien tribe in the untainted heavenly realm. Sanqing Street was named after the three pure ones. It should be the gathering place of the human tribe. Zhuowen entered the gate of Sanqing Street. He found that there was an extremely powerful inhibition on the surface of the gate. The inhibition was very powerful and had unparalleled destructive power. Zhuowen had no doubt that if he broke into the inhibition, he would probably be attacked. However, the pass token in his hand emitted a light, and the inhibition on the surface of the gate began to disappear. Of course, the inhibition only disappeared temporarily. Zhuowen took the opportunity to step into the gate, and then the inhibition was restored. The instant Zhuo, when completely entered 3 Purities Street, he was immediately stunned. This was because he realized that he was currently standing on an incomparably grand street. The street was very long, and on both sides of the street were many luxurious pavilions. At the end of Sanqing Street, Zhuowen saw a huge palace floating in the air. Above the palace, there was a huge plaque with the words Sanqing Palace written on it. At the same time, Zhuowen saw many figures wandering on Sanqing Street. Some of them even stopped to observe the pavilions on both sides of the street. Zhuowen found that most of the pavilions on both sides of the street were shops selling divine weapons, magic medicines, magic elixirs, and other things. Chapter 3448. Just looking for someone. Of course, Zhuowen found that the figures on the Street of 3 Purities were all practitioners at the level of sky-reaching master. They wandered on the Street of 3 Purities to buy what they needed from the shops on both sides. Once they bought something, they would leave in a hurry and return to their cave residences in the depths of the Street of 3 Purities to practice in seclusion. Moreover, Zhuowen found that the heavenly way energy in the Street of 3 Purities was extremely rich, much richer than in the outside world. He took a deep breath, and the heavenly way energy poured into his lungs and spread to his whole body, making him feel indescribably comfortable. Zhuowen finally knew why so many sky-reaching master experts gathered in the heaven-accessing place. It was because the heavenly way energy here was richer, and the rules of heavenly way were clearer, which allowed sky-reaching master practitioners to practice faster. Zhuowen roughly swept his gaze over 3 clear streets. Although the cultivators on the streets were scattered, there were actually several hundred of them after a careful count. It was the first time for Zhuowen to see hundreds of sky-reaching master practitioners all at once, and these were just the practitioners strolling on the street, as well as the practitioners who had opened many cave residences in the depths of the street. In the Street of 3 Purities alone, there were probably nearly 1,000 sky-reaching master practitioners, which was a terrifying number. But Zhuowen thought it was normal. So many years had passed since the starry sky had developed, and many sky-reaching master experts had appeared in every era. After so many eras, even if some sky-reaching master practitioners had died or reached the end of their lifespan, the number of sky-reaching masters who remained was still terrifying. Zhuowen's entry did not attract the attention of the practitioners strolling on the Street of 3 Purities. Practitioners often went in and out of the Street of 3 Purities, so they were not surprised that a practitioner had come in. Boom! Suddenly, the whole Street of 3 Purities shook violently, and all the practitioners on the street looked surprised and doubtful. Zhuowen's face changed greatly. He knew that Bing Hui had probably smashed the entrance to the heaven-accessing place. Otherwise, the street would not have been affected so much. Who is it? How dare you behave atrociously in the heaven-accessing place? At the end of the 3 Purities Street, within the vast 3 Purities Palace, an old man radiating holy light rode out on a green ox. Taoist 3 Purities? What the hell is going on? Even a major figure like Taoist Three Purities has been drawn out. It seems like the entrance to the secret realm was forcefully destroyed by someone. What? Who had the guts to destroy the entrance to the secret territory? Is this a provocation to the heaven accessing place? On the streets of the Three Purities, many cultivators were discussing animatedly, their eyes filled with indignation. At the same time, on the other side of the street, many foreign race experts were also alarmed. The first tower master of the Shaman Tower, Wu Taiji, also flew out of the Shaman Tower. His hair and beard were fluttering, and his eyes were spitting fire. Taoist Three Purities moved very quickly, instantly leaving Three Purities Street. As for the many human experts within Three Purities Street, they all followed him out of Three Purities Street. In the blink of an eye, Three Purities Street became much more deserted, with almost no cultivators left inside. Zhuowen stood next to a shop, his eyes flashing. He withdrew his clone into his major world, then summoned his true body out. His true body didn't have any of Pango's aura, and he knew that his clone's aura had been locked onto by Bing Hui. As soon as his clone went out, Bing Hui would immediately recognize him. Even if he changed his appearance, it would be useless. However, if his true body went out, Zhuowen knew that Bing Hui wouldn't be able to recognize him. Zhuowen was dressed in white robes. He changed his appearance slightly, then took a single step out of Three Purities Street and arrived at the plaza from before. At this moment, the square was filled with cultivators. The Three Purities Street was filled with human cultivators, while the gate of the Chaos Street was filled with foreign cultivators. Taoist Three Purities hovered in midair atop his green ox, a horsetail whisk in his hand. Next to Taoist Three Purities was a beautiful woman with a graceful figure. She stood there quietly, her expression calm and cold. It was Lian Meng. Zhuowen gave Lian Meng a deep look. He discovered that Lian Meng's eyes were no longer as empty as they had been in the past. Instead, they were filled with life. It seemed that Lian Meng had recovered, but he didn't know if she still remembered him as her junior brother. When he thought of this, Zhuowen laughed bitterly in his heart. But soon, his gaze was drawn to a middle-aged man amongst the foreign cultivators. This middle-aged man was tall and sturdy. His skin was light purple, and he wore long purple robes. A powerful, intimidating aura emanated from him. From the discussions around him, Zhuowen learned that this middle-aged man was Wu Taiji, the head of the first tower of the Shaman Tower, the #1 power in Chaos Street. He was an unparalleled expert of the shaman race, and was no weaker than Taoist Three Purities. Zhuowen's gaze was grave. He knew that Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao, who had come down from the heaven-span secret realm to rebuild Shaman God City, had most likely been sent down by Wu Taiji. Thump, thump, thump. At that moment, the crisp sound of footsteps rang out in front of them, attracting everyone's attention. A figure slowly walked out from the shattered black gate. It was Bing Hui, who had been chasing Zhuowen. Bing Hui stopped and looked at the thousands of cultivators in the square. He frowned slightly. He hadn't expected there to be so many cultivators in the heaven-span secret realm, and none of them were weak. In fact, they were all very strong. This was especially true of the old man floating in the air on the blue ox and the middle-aged man in purple robes. Their auras were so powerful that even Bing Hui's expression changed slightly. There are actually 2 fifth blight cultivators in the lower realms. Bing Hui muttered to himself. His expression wasn't very good. Bing Hui wasn't the only one who felt troubled. Taoist, Three Purities, and Wu Taiji's expressions were grave as well. This was because they could both sense Bing Hui's terrifyingly powerful aura. They knew that the cultivator who had broken into the heaven-span secret realm was also a fifth blight cultivator. And for some unknown reason, Bing Hui gave them an even more dangerous feeling. They felt an unprecedented sense of crisis. Taoist, three purities, and Wu Taiji exchanged a glance at the same time. Their expressions were very solemn. They knew that this intruder's strength was extraordinary. Fellow Taoist, may I ask why you have broken into our heaven-span secret realm? Our heaven-span secret realm doesn't seem to have offended you. Fellow Taoist, three purities, was the first to speak. Wu Taiji said in a low voice, Fellow Taoist, who are you? I know almost all of the experts in the lower realms, but I don't think you're familiar. Bing Hui calmed down, and a hint of pride appeared in his eyes. He said calmly, It's normal that you don't know me. I am Bing Hui, a member of the alternate ghost clan in the 100 territories of the Outer Realms. I came to your lower realms to find my junior brother. However, my junior brother was seriously injured by someone. I wanted to avenge him, so I chased after that bastard. But I didn't think that bastard would be able to slip away and enter your heaven-span secret realm. I broke into your heaven-span secret realm to find someone. Chapter 3449. Power of Six Paths of Samsara. The whole place was in an uproar. All the cultivators were shocked by Bing Hui's words. There were no weaklings among the practitioners in the heaven accessing place. All of them were once the top superiors in their respective heavenly domains. Moreover, they had lived in the heaven accessing place for so many years, so they knew more secrets than the Xianmi heavenly domain or the untainted heavenly domain. They knew that a brand new world would appear after transcending this starry sky. Only those who had broken through the heavens would have a chance of coming into contact with it. How could they not be shocked by the sudden appearance of this ice-armored man who claimed to be from beyond the starry sky? Even Taoist three purities and Wu Taiji were stunned. Are you a cultivator from beyond the starry skies? As far as I know, the cultivators outside the starry sky should all be at the heaven-breaking realm. You, Wu Taiji, revealed a puzzled expression and asked the question in his heart. Bing Hui sneered and said, The starry sky regulations of your lower realm are not complete at all and have a strong repelling effect on heaven-breaking realm cultivators. I had to sever my own cultivation in order to barely enter the starry skies of your lower realms. Although my cultivation level has dropped to the shattering heaven tier, my Tao presence is much stronger than yours. If you were to battle with me, I'd be able to defeat you within 10 moves. Bing Hui was very proud. He looked at Wu Taiji provocatively. He came from beyond the starry sky and regarded the starry sky creatures of the lower realms as natives. He had a sense of superiority that was difficult to conceal in his heart. Even though Wu Taiji and Taoist three purities were both fifth blight experts, he didn't fear them. At most, they would be a bit troublesome to deal with. Wu Taiji's face was gloomy. Being provoked by Bing Hui like this, he felt a little embarrassed. However, Wu Taiji didn't attack. He could feel that although Bing Hui was only at the fifth blight, he gave him a strong sense of danger. He had never felt such a sense of danger from Taoist three purities. He was certain that if he were to fight this man, he would definitely be at a disadvantage. However, Wu Taiji was not convinced. He felt that Bing Hui was underestimating him. He did not believe that Bing Hui could defeat him within 10 moves. How can you prove that you came from beyond the starry skies? Taoist three purities finally spoke up. Taoist three purities was clearly much calmer than Wu Taiji. His face had been terrifyingly calm this entire time. Moreover, Zhuowen, who was hidden among the crowd, always felt that the three pure ones' gazes would occasionally sweep in his direction. This caused Zhuowen to feel a little apprehensive. Could it be that the three pure ones had recognized him? Bing Hui glanced at the three purities indifferently and said, I came down here merely to search for people. I'm not here to be interrogated by you. If you insist on obstructing me, we'll just fight." As he spoke, Bing Huey's aura became more and more turbulent. It was like a tidal wave that suddenly exploded from the square. It was as if countless mountains had fallen on him, causing the atmosphere in the square to become extremely solemn. Many cultivators let out muffled groans and retreated one after another. Their faces were incomparably pale as they couldn't bear the impact of Bing Huey's terrifying aura. The faces of Taoist Three Purities and Wu Taiji both flickered slightly. They unleashed their powerful auras in an attempt to block Aisechui's aura. However, what caused their faces to turn ugly was that they could only barely block Bing Huey's terrifying aura. This was inconceivable to them. Bing Hui was also at the fifth heaven's blight, so how could he be so ridiculously powerful? Moreover, Bing Huey's aura carried with it a terrifying, shattering aura. When their auras came into contact with it, they immediately crumbled apart and completely disintegrated. This was the first time they had seen such a strange aura. "Oh, you actually managed to block it. The two of you aren't bad. If I hadn't reached the Heaven Breaker realm in the past, I probably wouldn't have been a match for the two of you by myself. Unfortunately, I was once a Heaven Breaker realm cultivator. Although I severed my cultivation, a portion of the Heaven Breaker realm's shattering divine power still remains in my body. In front of my shattering divine power, the power of the heavenly Tao is nothing more than a joke. To me, it's nothing more than clay chickens and pottery dogs." Bing Hui sneered. His aura skyrocketed again, and a terrifying cold chi swept out, instantly freezing the square into a world of ice and snow. The faces of Taoist Three Purities and Wu Taiji finally changed. They could clearly sense that Bing Huey's power wasn't much stronger than theirs. The only difference was that Bing Hui had a special and powerful energy on him. In terms of level, this energy was far superior to the energy of the heavenly Tao. Bing Hui relied on this energy to completely suppress the two of them. This person might really be an expert from beyond the starry sky. Wu Taiji's eyes were solemn. He barely managed to resist. He looked at Taoist Three Purities and said in a deep voice, "Taoist Three Purities, the energy this person controls far surpasses the energy of the heavenly Tao that we control. Even if we join forces, I'm afraid we won't be a match for him." Taoist Three Purities' eyes were gloomy. He said coldly, "Wu Taiji, what do you mean? Are you going to surrender?" Wu Taiji sneered. "Surrender? That's not my style. This person isn't hostile to us. He only broke into the heaven-accessing place to look for someone. We can let him look for that person. When he finds that person, he'll naturally leave. The heaven-accessing place is the only place under the starry sky where the energy of the heavenly Tao is the richest. It can be considered a paradise in the starry sky. If we fight with this guy, the heaven-accessing place is likely to collapse. That won't do us any good. Handing over a person in exchange for the safety of the heaven-accessing place. Why not?" Taoist Three Purities' eyes were gloomy. He said coldly, "The practitioners in the heaven-accessing place are all our companions. How can we hand over our companions?" Wu Taiji laughed. His laughter was full of sarcasm. "Taoist Three Purities, you're still the same. You're a hypocrite, but you still want a monument to your chastity. If you don't want to hand her over, then fight with this fellow Taoist. I won't keep you company." Saying this, Wu Taiji cupped his hands at Bing Hui and immediately retreated. Seeing that Wu Taiji was so tactful, Bing Hui nodded and withdrew his qi. Instead, he focused all his qi on Taoist Three Purities. Instantly, the pressure on Taoist Three Purities increased sharply. He could no longer maintain the calm look on his face. His face turned pale, and cold sweat beaded on his forehead. His sage-like image was destroyed. Many practitioners of the human clan on Taoist Three Purities Street looked worriedly at Taoist Three Purities, who was gradually losing under Bing Hui's qi. Just as Bing Hui was about to completely suppress Taoist Three Purities, Lian Meng, who was standing beside Taoist Three Purities, emitted brilliant light from her eyes. A gate of reincarnation formed in front of Taoist Three Purities, forcibly reversing the terrible qi. Puff. Chapter 3450. Extreme Purple Spiritual Method. The power of 6 paths of reincarnation. Bing Hui found that his momentum had been reversed. He couldn't help but look at the unconscious Lian Meng and ponder. If he was right, the power of 6 paths of reincarnation was one of the abilities of the Pangu clan. He didn't expect this little girl to know it too. However, Bing Hui used his divine thought to check Lian Meng carefully. He didn't find any obvious aura of the Pangu clan on her, so he was relieved. Although Lian Meng was formed by a part of Pan Yu's essence blood, it was too thin. It was normal that Bing Hui couldn't find it. The 3 pure ones were formed by Pan Yu's primordial spirit. Later, he reconstructed his body. It was impossible for him to have the essence blood of the Pangu clan, so Bing Hui couldn't associate him with the 3 pure ones. On the other hand, Zhuowen had inherited the venomous insects of the 12 ancestors of sorcery and practiced the Pangu's sacred body. He had a strong Pangu bloodline. Bing Hui could tell at a glance. Old man, you've got a good disciple. She has the body of 6 paths of reincarnation. But let's see if you can resist this time. Bing Hui sneered. He was about to attack again when the 3 pure ones suddenly said, "Fellow cultivator, please wait. We have no grudge against each other. Why do you have to fight? Of course, if you want to die with me, I have no objection. The heaven accessing place contains the will of the starry sky. If the will of the starry sky explodes, no matter how strong you are, you won't be able to survive." Bing Hui's expression changed. He knew about the will of the starry sky. It was the most horrible thing in the starry sky fruit. If the will of the starry sky exploded, its power would be terrible. Even a heaven-breaking realm expert might die if he was affected. 3 pure ones. How dare you? Wu Taiji was also anxious. The will of the starry sky was the heaven-accessing place's final trump card. It couldn't be used casually. After all, once it was used, not only would the heaven-accessing place collapse, but they would also die. Bing Hui was angry, but he soon calmed down and said, "Fellow cultivator, I didn't mean to offend you. As I said, I'm just looking for someone. Once I find that person, I'll leave immediately." Bing Hui was very afraid of the will of the starry sky, so he was very polite now. He did not dare to provoke the 3 pure ones. "Does fellow Taoist have a portrait of the person you're looking for? Maybe I know him." Wu Taiji spoke, speaking warmly to Bing Hui. He had already determined that Bing Hui came from beyond the starry skies and was once a heaven-breaking tier elite. He wanted to establish a good relationship with him. Perhaps in the future, he would be able to borrow Bing Hui's help. Even if he couldn't break through to the heaven-crushing tier, he would still be able to enter the 100 realms of the outer realm. He knew that the energy level of the 100 outer territories was very high. It was far from what the space they were in could compare with. If he could enter the 100 outer realms to cultivate with his talent, he might be able to successfully break through the heavens in a short period of time. Moreover, the 100 domains outside the realm had many cultivation methods and secret techniques that surpassed Tao validation. If he could master such powerful cultivation methods and secret techniques in advance, even if he couldn't break through, his strength would definitely skyrocket. At that time, he would be able to suppress the 3 pure ones. San Qing's eyes flashed. He nodded slightly, but didn't say anything. Clearly, he agreed with Wu Taiji. Bing Hui smiled and landed on the ground. He waved his sleeve, and a figure appeared in the air. This figure was revealed to be a middle-aged man with a rather ferocious face. The people in the square couldn't help but look at the image. Then, they all looked puzzled. Obviously, they didn't know this person. This fierce-looking middle-aged man was Zhuowen in disguise. Wu Taiji frowned slightly. He had never seen the middle-aged man in the image before. Since this person was chased by an elite like Bing Hui, he was probably a half-step heaven-breaking tier elite. Could it be that he also came from beyond the starry skies? This person's name is Zhuowen. This should be his disguise. I haven't seen his real appearance, but I recognize his aura. As long as you gather everyone in the heaven-accessing territory and let me search, I will be able to find him. Bing Hui said confidently. Naturally, he had learned Zhuowen's name from Sakyamuni. What? It's Zhuowen? I remember that Zhuowen was a junior in the Xianmi heavenly territory. How could he have offended such an elite? When Bing Hui said Zhuowen's name, the people on the 3 Purity Street were in an uproar. The people on the Chaotic Street were also talking about it. Wu Taiji, the first Tower Master of the Wizard Tower, looked gloomy. Zhuowen was too familiar with this person. He was the one who destroyed Wizard God City and almost wiped out the wizard tribe in the untainted heavenly territory. At that time, Zhuowen used the alias Long One. Although the rumor said that Long One had self-exploded and died, Wu Taiji still ordered people to investigate Long Wen's background. He knew that Long Wen's real name was Zhuowen and that he was a genius of the human tribe. Although he had found out Zhuowen's identity, Wu Taiji did not take it to heart. He also thought that Zhuowen had self-exploded and died. He naturally did not care about the dead. However, now that he heard the name Zhuowen from Bing Hui, Wu Taiji immediately thought of Long One. He suspected that the Zhuowen that Bing Hui mentioned was the same person as the Long One that he had investigated. On the human tribe's side, 3 Purities had put the unconscious Lian Meng on the green ox. He also heard Bing Hui's words and could not help but look at Zhuowen. At this moment, Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy. He had noticed 3 Purities' actions and was sure that they had recognized him. Zhuowen's body was tense. He had always thought that 3 Purities had ulterior motives towards him. Now that Bing Hui was looking for him and 3 Purities had recognized him, Zhuowen was not sure if 3 Purities would expose him. It seems that you know Zhuowen? Since that's the case, I'll take the initiative to hand it over. If one of you gives it to me, I can give him this Purple Extreme Spiritual Technique. The Purple Extreme Spiritual Technique is a primary heaven-crushing technique. Cultivating this technique will allow you to evolve quickly, and it will be much easier for you to reach the heaven-crushing stage. Bing Hui took out a book. The cover of this book was golden and shone with golden light. The words Purple Extreme Spiritual Technique were written on the cover. The moment Bing Hui took out the Purple Extreme Spiritual Technique, everyone's breathing quickened. In the heaven-accessing secret realm, there was almost nothing lacking. The only thing missing was a technique that could allow one to reach the heaven-crushing stage. With a technique of this level, one would not need to comprehend the heavenly Tao and reach the heaven-crushing stage on their own. It would save them a lot of trouble. Even 3 Purities had inherited Pan, used primordial spirit, and part of Pan used memories. However, the memories were too incomplete. Although Pan, you also cultivated a heaven-crushing technique, it was too incomplete. As a result, 3 Purities could only comprehend it, but could not cultivate it. From this, one could see how precious the heaven-crushing technique was. 3 Purities and Wu Taiji had already cultivated to the highest level in this starry sky. If they wanted to advance further, they would have to comprehend it on their own. That would take a long time. As long as they could obtain such a heaven-crushing technique, their chances of reaching the heaven-crushing stage would be very high. Chapter 3451. Search when saw Bing Hui take out the extreme purple spirit art. His face turned even uglier. He knew that things weren't going well. He didn't expect that Bing Hui would be so generous as to take out a heaven-breaking cultivation method just to find him. It seemed that he had underestimated how much Bing Hui valued the Pangu clan. Zhuowen's eyes fell on 3 Pure Ones. He was nervous because he knew that 3 Pure Ones had recognized him and were in need of a heaven-breaking cultivation method. He was really nervous that 3 Pure Ones would identify him directly. First, gather all the practitioners in your heaven accessing place. If I'm satisfied with your performance, I'll give the purple extreme spiritual method to you. Bing Hui's eyes were full of arrogance. He treated himself as a superior and spoke in a commanding tone. However, Wu Taiji and 3 Pure Ones weren't angry. They focused all their attention on the purple ultimate spiritual method. It was a heaven-breaking cultivation method that could help them break the heavens. In this part of the starry sky, it was the only one of its kind. It was a supreme treasure that countless experts would fight to the death for. It was a treasure that even Wu Taiji and 3 Pure Ones couldn't ignore. Wu Taiji was very active. He said quickly, "Fellow Taoist, Zhuowen is from the human tribe. If you want to find him, you have to search in 3 Pure Streets. Since that guy has entered the heaven accessing place, he can't escape." As he spoke, Wu Taiji ordered several powerful alien tribe members to guard the broken entrance of the secret realm. Seeing this, Zhuowen cursed Wu Taiji's shamelessness. He knew that Wu Taiji had sent people to block the entrance of the secret realm in advance to prevent him from escaping. 3 Pure Ones stood in front of 3 Pure Streets and fell into silence. He didn't look at Zhuowen anymore. He seemed to be thinking about something. "Oh, is he from 3 Pure Streets? Can I enter 3 Pure Streets and search? If I can find the person I'm looking for, this purple ultimate spiritual method is yours." Bing Hui looked at 3 Pure Ones and said he could tell that the 3 purities were the leaders of the 3 Purities Street. If he wanted to enter the 3 Purities Street, he had to get the approval of this person. If Bing Hui wasn't worried about the starry sky, he wouldn't have asked for the 3 Pure Ones' opinion. He would have rushed into the 3 Pure One Street and searched for Zhuowen. Bing Hui had already scanned all the cultivators in the square with his spiritual sense, but he didn't sense any Pangu bloodline. He knew that Zhuowen, whom he was looking for, wasn't in this group. He now wanted to enter the 3 Purities Street to explore. He knew that Zhuowen was definitely hiding here. With his spiritual will, Zhuowen had nowhere to hide. Hearing Bing Hui's words, Wu Taiji's expression changed slightly. He wanted to say something, but after opening his mouth, he remained silent. He was a little annoyed. Wu Taiji knew that if the 3 Pure Ones obtained the purple extreme spirit technique, then there was a very high chance that the 3 Pure Ones would break through to the heaven-crushing tier. At that time, he would be completely left in the dust and wouldn't be able to compete with the 3 Pure Ones. Now, Wu Taiji was praying in his heart that Zhuowen had slipped away or was hiding in some secret place so that Bing Hui could not find him. The 3 Pure Ones were silent for a moment. They glanced at Bing Hui and nodded. "Fellow cultivator, go ahead and search the 3 Purities Street." Hearing the 3 Pure Ones' words, Zhuowen, who was in the crowd, revealed a strange expression. He didn't expect the 3 Pure Ones to not expose him. Was he not interested in the purple extreme spirit technique? Good. A wise man submits to circumstances. If I can find Zhuowen, I will definitely fulfill my promise and give you the purple extreme spirit technique. Bing Hui nodded and stepped into the Three Purities Street. About an hour later, Bing Hui re-emerged from the Three Purities Street, but his expression was very gloomy. The three pure ones stepped forward and asked in confusion, "Fellow cultivator, how was it? Did you find the person you were looking for?" Bing Hui's expression darkened, and he said coldly, "No, I searched the entire Three Purities Street, but I couldn't sense Zhuowen's aura. What is going on?" The three pure ones looked disappointed and sighed. "Sigh, you didn't find him? What a pity." Saying this, the three pure ones looked at the golden manual in Bing Hui's hand, and his eyes were full of disappointment. Bing Hui naturally saw the three pure ones' little movements. He said coldly, "What? Do you really want the extreme purple spiritual art in my hands? Unfortunately, I didn't find the person I was looking for in the Three Purities Street. You don't have the right to have it." Wu Taiji sighed. He felt lucky that he didn't find the person he was looking for. Otherwise, it would be really troublesome. He and the three pure ones were on opposing sides, and they had been fighting for so many years. Although he was often suppressed by the three pure ones, it was not to the extent that he was completely crushed. However, if the three pure ones were to break the heavens and earth earlier, Wu Taiji's status would be gone, and he might even lose his life. The three pure ones were very regretful, but they did not mention the purple extreme spirit technique to Bing Hui. Bing Hui frowned slightly, and his eyes fell on Wu Taiji. He said, "Is the person I'm looking for hiding in the chaotic street?" Wu Taiji was very sensible. He quickly said, "Fellow Taoist, go ahead and search in the chaotic street. If you can find the person you're looking for, what about the purple extreme spirit technique?" "Of course," Bing Hui said indifferently. Hearing this, Wu Taiji was so excited that his body trembled. He quickly invited Bing Hui into the chaotic street. Bing Hui naturally wouldn't be polite to Wu Taiji. However, to Wu Taiji's disappointment, Bing Hui soon came out alone. He knew that Bing Hui didn't find the person he was looking for in the chaotic street. Bing Hui's face was gloomy, and he was a little irritated. Zhuowen seemed to have disappeared into thin air. He had clearly locked onto Zhuowen's spirit. As long as Zhuowen was still in the heaven accessing place, he would be able to sense him. However, he was disappointed that he couldn't find any trace of Zhuowen's spirit. It was as if Zhuowen had vanished into thin air. In the crowd, Zhuowen saw Bing Hui's expression and felt relieved. He was glad that his macro world was magical. His doppelganger's spirit was indeed locked onto by Bing Hui. If his doppelganger was here, Bing Hui would be able to sense it immediately. Fortunately, his macro world had completely concealed his doppelganger's spirit. Even Bing Hui couldn't detect any abnormalities. Bing Hui's eyes were gloomy. He glanced at the people in the heaven accessing place and felt helpless. Given his character, he would have already destroyed the heaven accessing place if it was any other time. He would rather kill 3,000 innocents than let one person go. However, the heaven accessing place contained the will of the starry sky, which he couldn't resist. If these people were really crazy and blew up the will of the starry sky, he would definitely die. Chapter 3452. Goodbye to the three pure ones. Thinking of this, Bing Hui didn't attack the heaven accessing place. However, he was unwilling to leave just like that. He had accidentally found a descendant of the Pangu clan. If he could capture him alive and bring him to the Ice Demon King, it would be a great merit. Even if he brought the corpse back, the Ice Demon King would still reward him according to his merit. He didn't want to miss such an opportunity. That was why he was willing to use the purple extreme spiritual technique to capture Zhuowen. The purple extreme spiritual technique was a supreme secret method in the lower world. However, in the 100 territories outside the world, it was only the most basic, heaven-breaking level cultivation method. For Bing Hui, the purple extreme spiritual technique was only average. However, if he could find the descendant of the Pangu clan and bring him to the Ice Demon King, the reward would be much higher than the purple extreme spiritual technique. This was an absolutely profitable deal. However, he couldn't find Zhuowen. This made him unhappy and irritated, but there was nothing he could do. Moreover, the Ice Demon King had told him to bring Sakyamuni back as soon as possible. He couldn't stay in the lower world for long. Thinking of this, Bing Hui took out 2 blue talismans and gave them to the 3 pure ones and Wu Taiji. Fellow Taoists, if the 2 of you can find Zhuowen and inform me immediately, then help me capture him. Then the purple extreme spiritual arts will belong to whoever is in charge. In the future, if you break through the starry sky, I can recruit you into the foreign ghost clan's domain in advance. I can guarantee your safety in advance. Bing Hui looked at the 3 pure ones and Wu Taiji and said solemnly, 3 purities, and Wu Taiji nodded and put away the talismans that Bing Hui gave them. I'll see you 2 again. Bing Hui bade farewell and took out a snow-white talisman. He crushed it, and a powerful reverse teleportation force came, and Bing Hui disappeared from where he stood. The 3 pure ones and Wu Taiji looked at the dispersing teleportation power with serious faces. They could feel that the place where Bing Hui was teleported to was probably beyond the starry sky, because the teleportation energy was too mysterious. Even a transcending heaven-grade teleportation array could not produce such a mysterious teleportation power. This was definitely a teleportation talisman that surpassed the transcending heaven grade. Inform all the races in the prehistoric heaven realm to arrest that Zhuowen. Of course, this bastard has another name, long one. I really didn't think that this kid would still be alive. He really tricked me. Wu Taiji ordered his subordinates to put all their efforts into hunting down Zhuowen, and arranged for 2 powerful experts at the peak of the sky-piercing realm to guard the entrance of the secret realm. Once someone entered and exited the heaven-accessing place, they must be strictly checked to prevent anyone from fishing in troubled waters. 3 purities didn't say anything. Instead, he led the human cultivators back to 3 Purities Street. Zhuowen didn't plan to return to 3 Purities Street. After all, 3 Purities had also received Ku Binghui's communication talisman. Although 3 Purities hadn't reported him before, people's hearts were unpredictable. For the sake of the purple ultimate spiritual method, Zhuowen wasn't sure whether 3 Purities would change their minds and secretly pass on his information to Bing Hui. But now the entrance of the secret realm was completely controlled by the experts on Primitive Street. If he left the heaven-accessing place immediately, he would be suspected. As long as they weren't fools, they would know that there was something wrong with him. At that time, Wu Taiji would immediately capture him. His strength was still too weak. He was no match for Wu Taiji and 3 Purities, who were at the 5th Blight. If he exposed his identity now, it would do him more harm than good. At that time, his situation would become very bad. Thinking of this, Zhuowen sighed slightly. He had to follow the human cultivators back to 3 Purities Street. After entering 3 Purities Street, 3 Purities carried the unconscious Lianmeng and rode the green ox back to 3 Purities Palace. As soon as Zhuowen entered 3 Purities Street, 3 Purities old and vicissitudes of life sounded in his mind. Zhuowen, come to 3 Purities Palace. I have something to tell you. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone about you. Zhuowen's body stiffened. In the end, he sighed softly and flew along the street toward 3 Purities Palace. On the street, there were many cultivators who flew like Zhuowen. Some of them directly took out their flying divine devices and rushed into the depths of Three Purities Street. That was the gathering area of cave residences on Three Purities Street. Many of the cultivators' cave residences were located in the depths of the street near Three Purities Palace. When Zhuo arrived at the end of the street, he realized that there was a towering mountain in front of him. The Palace of Three Purities was located at the peak of the mountain. Because the color of the mountain was almost the same as the starry sky, Zhuo thought that Three Purities Palace was floating in the air when he looked at it from afar. Now that he saw it, he knew that it wasn't the case. In this mountain, there were many cave residences. The cultivators who came here by flying divine devices all entered their own cave residences and began to practice in seclusion. The life of the cultivators in the heaven-accessing secret land was monotonous and boring. They practiced day after day. They would not come out unless there was something important or they needed to buy the magic elixirs needed for practice. This time, the entrance to the secret land was broken, which woke up many of the cultivators who were practicing in seclusion. Now that the matter was solved, these cultivators naturally went back to practice in seclusion. Zhuo did not pay attention to the cultivators who were practicing in seclusion. Instead, he flew straight to the top of the mountain. Zhuo's behavior soon attracted the attention of many cultivators. When they found that Zhuo was going to Three Purities Palace on the top of the mountain, their expressions were very interesting. What is this guy going to do? Is he going to break into Three Purities Palace? Not necessarily. Maybe he is a guest of Three Purities. This guy looks unfamiliar. I don't remember any guest of Three Purities having such a face. Many cultivators at the foot of the mountain were talking about it. They watched Zhuo rush to Three Purities Palace. Three Purities Palace was very magnificent. It didn't look like much from a distance, but when one got close, one would only feel that it was magnificent and magnificent. It was surrounded by fairy chi, and red-crowned cranes were flying. It was like a fairyland. Suddenly, a red-crowned crane landed in front of Zhuo and spoke. "My fellow cultivator, please come with me. Three Purities are waiting for you in the inner room." The voice of the red-crowned crane turned out to be a crisp female voice, very pleasant to the ear. Zhuo nodded. Then, the red-crowned crane led Zhuo into the depths of Three Purities Palace. There were many guards and servants in Three Purities Palace, but they were all very quiet and did not feel noisy at all. Soon, the red-crowned crane led Zhuo to a garden courtyard. Surrounded by rockery, there was a rather quaint pavilion. Three Purities was sitting cross-legged in the pavilion, looking at Zhuo with a smile. In front of him was a sparkling and translucent jade table, emitting a sparkling white light. Even the wine pot and wine cups on the jade table were made of jade. There were 2 wine cups on the table, and Three Purities was sitting facing Zhuo. Chapter 3453. The chaotic starry sky Zhuo, when sat down and looked at the benevolent-looking old man with a warm smile on his face with a complicated expression. From the moment the Great Pure One took him in as a disciple, Zhuo realized that he had never understood the old man in front of him. When the Great Pure One recovered, the Three Purities merged into one and left the 8 heavens as Taoist Three Purities. Zhuo knew even less about the Three Purities. He couldn't see through the old man in front of him. It had to be said that after the Three Purities merged into one, Taoist Three Purities cultivation recovered very quickly. Unknowingly, he already had the strength of a 5th blight expert and became one of the leaders of the heaven-accessing realm. Zhuo, my good disciple, I really didn't expect that after not seeing you for so many years, you could achieve so much. I'm proud of you. The corners of the Three Purities' mouth curled into a warm smile. He poured a cup of wine for Zhuo. His actions were very natural, as if the person in front of him was really his disciple. "How is junior sister Lianmeng?" Zhuowen asked with a slightly angry tone. The three purities smiled and said, "Lianmeng is fine. She just fainted." Using the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation to resist the attack of a 5th blight expert is indeed a bit difficult. "You're using her as a tool?" Zhuowen's face was gloomy and his tone was somewhat fierce. The three purities' eyes became serious, and he said, "Zhuowen, you don't understand. I'm training Lianmeng. She will play a crucial role in resisting the chaos in the future. Now there isn't much time left. She must quickly become stronger. A flower that grows in a greenhouse will never be as tough as a grass that is exposed to the wind and rain outside. Only by using the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation can Lianmeng continue to become stronger. Only in this way can she help me in the future." Zhuowen calmed down and didn't say anything. He knew that his point of view was different from the three purities. No matter what he said, the two of them couldn't agree on Lianmeng. However, Zhuowen knew that the three purities were formed from the wandering primordial spirit. He had a deep hatred for the chaos in this starry sky and wanted to get rid of it quickly. Whether it was Lianmeng or Zhuowen cultivating the Pangu's sacred body, it could be said that it was the three purities. After all, it was the three purities' immortal emperor Zhengronggu that allowed him to successfully cultivate the Pangu's sacred body. Just now, you had the chance to obtain the extreme purple spirit art. Why didn't you expose me? Zhuowen calmed down and began to ask the three purities about Ice Hui. The three purities chuckled and said, "Purple extreme spiritual art? Hee. Although this is a heaven-breaching technique, it can only be considered the most basic entry-level technique in the outer realms. Is heaven sky? Is Sanqing took out the blue talisman that Bing Hui had given him and destroyed it right in front of Zhuowen's eyes. Zhuowen was moved. He looked deeply at the three pure ones. He hadn't expected that the three pure ones would destroy Bing Hui's communication talisman right in front of him. "Why?" Zhuowen asked in confusion. "You and I come from the same origin. We have the responsibility to support this starry sky together. You may not know, but Bing Hui came from the other ghost clan in the 100 Domains. The other ghost clan is one of the culprits who killed the Pangu clan. You and I, strictly speaking, can be considered members of the Pangu clan. Although I don't have the bloodline of the Pangu clan, I inherited Pan Yu's primordial spirit and part of his memories. I know the Pangu clan very well. Therefore, you and I are born to be on the same side. In the future, we will have to shoulder the heavy responsibility of reviving the Pangu clan. This is the will left behind by Pan Yu when he died. It is also our responsibility." The three purities paused and looked at Zhuowen. He said, "This should be your human true body, right? Have you put away your doppelganger? Can you let me see what level your doppelganger has reached?" Zhuowen did not refuse and summoned his doppelganger. The doppelganger was dressed in black. Its face was exactly the same as the original body. The doppelganger's disguise had been removed, and its original appearance had been restored. The three purities looked at the doppelganger carefully and could not help but exclaim, "I didn't expect you to have cultivated the Pangu's sacred body to the peak of the 8 stars. It's really incredible. With your current combat strength, I'm afraid that the peak Master Tongtian is no longer your opponent. You can fight against a first blight expert." The three purities surrounded the doppelganger and clicked their tongues in amazement. Their eyes were bursting with excitement. Zhuowen was a little scared. Why did he feel that the three purities were looking at him in a strange way? The three purities returned to his seat and asked, "How many venomous worms have you integrated?" 8 of them have fused. Zhuowen said, "For more. As long as you integrate the rest of the venomous worms, your Panga sacred body will be completed completely at that time. Your combat strength will be comparable to a peak 5th Blight expert. In this starry sky, there won't be many opponents who can compete with you." The three purities' eyes were shining. He looked at Zhuowen and continued, "Zhuowen, the Black King told you before, right? The rest of the venomous worms are actually in the heaven accessing place." Zhuowen nodded. When he had just returned to the Xianmi heavenly territory from the untainted heavenly territory, the Black King stopped him halfway and brought him information about the three purities and the rest of the venomous worms. "Do you know where the rest of the venomous worms are?" Zhuowen asked, his eyes shining. The three purities nodded and said, "It's your first time in the heaven accessing place, so you don't know much about it. The heaven accessing place doesn't look big on the surface, but it's much bigger than the Xianmi heavenly territory and the untainted heavenly territory. The void in the heaven accessing place is not an ordinary starry sky, but a chaotic starry sky. Except for the three purity street and the untainted street, the rest of the heaven accessing place is basically a chaotic starry sky. It's just that the chaotic starry sky has been separated by our supreme formation and power." Zhuowen was confused. It was the first time he had heard about the chaotic starry sky. He couldn't help but ask, "What's the chaotic starry sky?" The three purities patiently explained to Zhuowen, "The so-called chaotic starry sky is actually the real starry sky. You should have heard what Bing Hui said before. He said that we belong to the lower world starry sky, and the starry sky rules are incomplete. The chaotic starry sky is above the lower world starry sky, and the starry sky rules are complete. Only the practitioners who practice in the chaotic starry sky can reach the heaven-breaking realm. Without the complete starry sky rules, even if you have the heaven-breaking cultivation method, you can't reach the heaven-breaking realm." Chapter 3454. Narration nodded. He now understood why so many experts of the sky-reaching realm could gather in the sky-reaching secret land. Even the practitioners of the human clan and the experts of foreign clans from the untainted heavenly realm could coexist peacefully here. All of this was because the sky-reaching secret land was connected to the chaotic starry sky and had complete starry sky rules that the outside world did not have. Why is there a chaotic starry sky in the sky-reaching secret land? Where does the chaotic starry sky come from? Zhuowen was surprised and asked in confusion. The chaotic starry sky is outside the starry sky of the lower world. That is, the place where the 100 territories are located. The sky-reaching secret land is a passage to the outside world. Three Pure One's eyes were solemn as he explained the nature of the sky-reaching secret land. It was actually a passage to the outside world. Zhuowen's pupils shrank slightly. He had not expected the nature of the sky-reaching secret land to be like this. Didn't that mean that as long as one went along the sky-reaching secret land and entered the depths, one would be able to enter the 100 territories? However, what Three Pure Ones said next shattered Zhuowen's fantasy. He told Zhuowen that the energy contained in the chaotic starry sky was too powerful. Even if a half-step heaven-breaking expert entered the depths of the chaotic starry sky, he would not be able to withstand the pressure of the chaotic starry sky. His body would collapse, and his divine soul would be annihilated. Although heaven-breaking experts could enter the chaotic starry sky without being affected too much, it was basically impossible for them to travel the chaotic starry sky completely. In the chaotic starry sky, they could only move slowly. The only experts who could truly travel the chaotic starry sky without the help of any tools with a great carefree realm experts. Such experts were legendary existences above the heaven-breaking realm and were basically impossible to see. Of course, if one had a great carefree realm spaceship, even if one was not a great carefree realm expert, he could still travel the chaotic starry sky. The reason why Bing Hui could arrive at the primordial tree so quickly from the 100 territories to the lower world where Zhuowen was mainly because of the Ice Demon King. If the Ice Fiend Monarch hadn't used a great ability to teleport Bing Hui to the primordial chaos tree, Bing Hui wouldn't have been able to enter the lower realm so quickly. At the same time, the three Pure Ones also told Zhuowen that the heaven accessing place was the closest place to the chaotic starry sky. It could be said that it was the border between the starry sky of the mortal world and the chaotic starry sky. The pressure in the chaotic starry sky within the heaven accessing place would not be so terrible. Even experts of the sky-reaching realm could enter the chaotic starry sky to practice and explore. Of course, even if the pressure of the chaotic starry sky in the heaven accessing place was weakened a lot, experts of the heaven accessing realm could not stay there for too long. Otherwise, they might die. Half-step heaven-crushing cultivators, on the other hand, could cultivate in the chaotic cosmos for a long time. Fifth blight cultivators, like Wu Taiji and the three Pure Ones, could stay in the chaotic cosmos of the heaven-accessing secret realm forever. Zhuowen also learned from Sanqing that there were many opportunities in the primal chaos cosmos because there were just too many supreme experts in the primal chaos cosmos. Over countless years, countless experts had perished in the primal chaos cosmos, their whereabouts unknown. Therefore, in the chaotic starry sky, there were always some powerful divine weapons or cultivation methods that would float into the chaotic starry sky of the heaven accessing place. Moreover, the divine weapons or cultivation methods that floated in were at least of the sky-reaching level. Although there were heaven-breaking divine weapons and cultivation methods, they were all incomplete. They were left behind after a great war. The three Pure Ones had once obtained a fragment of a heaven-breaking divine weapon. Even a fragment was much more powerful than a half-step heaven-crushing divine weapon. It could easily destroy a half-step heaven-crushing divine weapon. Wu Taiji was fortunate enough to obtain an incomplete heaven breaker cultivation method. Although it was severely incomplete, Wu Taiji relied on this incomplete cultivation method to reach the fifth heaven's blight from the peak of the fourth heaven's blight, catching up to the three Pure Ones who had always been above him. Many other practitioners in the heaven accessing place had more or less gained from exploring the chaotic cosmos. However, their gains were not as great as the three Pure Ones and Wu Taiji's. Heaven-breaking cultivation methods and divine weapons were too rare. Even if they were incomplete, they were priceless. You mean the rest of the ancient sorcery poisonous insects are in the chaotic cosmos? Zhuowen asked. Yes, I once sensed the aura of an ancestral shaman parasite, but it was like a fish in water in the chaotic starry sky, and its speed was even faster than mine. So, I quickly lost track of it. Your body has merged with other ancient sorcery poisonous insects, so you should have a special sense for them. I think it's best for you to enter the chaotic cosmos to search for them, the three Pure Ones said calmly. In the next few days, the three Pure Ones arranged a quiet courtyard for Zhuowen in the Three Pure Palace. Zhuowen had been in seclusion in the courtyard. His injuries had not completely healed. He spent the past few days healing himself and studying the true record of elixir arrays. The three Pure Ones had originally intended to announce that Zhuowen would enter the Three Pure Palace as his disciple. However, Zhuowen refused. Zhuowen had completely broken off his master-disciple relationship with the three Pure Ones. He had never thought that he would restore his relationship with the three Pure Ones. The three Pure Ones just smiled and did not mention this matter again. During this period of healing, Zhuowen had a deep understanding of the heaven accessing place. There were 2 streets in the heaven accessing place. They were the 3 Pure One Street and the Chaotic Street. They were the gathering places for practitioners of the human clan and the alien clan. They were also the places for practitioners to practice and rest. Outside the 2 streets was the chaotic cosmos. The 3 Pure One Street and the Chaotic Street each had a passage leading to the chaotic cosmos. Although the practitioners of the human clan and the alien clan seemed to get along peacefully in the 3 Pure One Street and the Chaotic Street, once they entered the chaotic cosmos, conflicts would arise between them. There would even be practitioners who would fight with each other if they did not agree with each other. Often, there would be many casualties. This was the rule of the heaven accessing place. Private fights were not allowed on the streets. However, once they entered the chaotic cosmos, there were not so many restrictions. Fights were inevitable. Of course, fights were not limited to the human clan and the alien clan. The human clan and the alien clan, as well as the alien clan and the alien clan, would often fight with each other because of opportunities. It could be said that in the chaotic cosmos, except for yourself, everyone was your enemy. What annoyed Zhuowen the most was that the gate to the secret land had been rebuilt. However, Wu Taiji, the first tower master of the Wizard Tower, still sent 2 experts at the peak of the heaven-reaching master of the Wizard clan to guard the gate and strictly checked the practitioners of the human clan who entered and left the entrance. The 3 Pure Ones had tried to stop Wu Taiji. Unfortunately, Wu Taiji did not listen to them. In the end, they parted on bad terms and were in a deadlock. Chapter 3455. 3 Purities Palace, an incomparably vast and towering tree, stood towering in the chaotic starry sky. This tree was called the primeval primordial tree. It had existed since time immemorial and nurtured countless fruits and living beings. There was a small starry sky fruit near the roots of the primeval primordial tree. At this moment, 2 figures were floating around the starry sky fruit. There was a blue barrier of flowing light around these 2 figures, and it helped them resist the terrifying pressure crushing down from the chaotic starry sky. These 2 people were Bing Hui and Sakyamuni of the Variant Ghost clan. The teleportation talisman that Bing Hui was using was a World Breaker talisman. It was a precious talisman that could break through realms and directly leave the starry sky of the lower realms. Such a talisman was extremely precious even in the outer realms, and it was given to Bing Hui by the Ice Fiend King. It was obvious how much the Ice Fiend King valued Sakyamuni. Junior brother, this is the primeval primordial tree. The starry sky of the lower realms you're in is only an insignificant starry sky fruit on this tree. Bing Hui's gaze was filled with an extremely strong sense of superiority when he spoke of the lower realms. Obviously, he looked down on the lower realms, and his tone was filled with disdain. Sakyamuni didn't seem to hear the disdain in Bing Hui's tone, and he was looking at all of this with shock. He'd never imagined that the starry sky of the lower realms he was in was actually just a starry sky fruit on the primeval primordial tree. There was actually such a vast, chaotic, starry sky outside of this place. That's the outer realms. With my strength, I'm still unable to traverse the chaotic starry sky. But don't worry, I've already notified Master. He'll use a great ability to guide us back to the Variant Ghost clan. Bing Hui said in a low voice. Sakyamuni calmed down. He was excited because this was a great opportunity for him. He'd already learned from Bing Hui that he possessed the Undying Tao root, and it was an extremely rare Tao root and natural talent even in the outer realms. Especially when he heard about the situation in the outer realms, he was even more excited. There was also the Variant Ghost clan's Ice Fiend King. It was said that he was one of the 3 kings of the Variant Ghost clan. His strength was monstrous, and he was an expert even in the outer realms. For him to be accepted as a disciple by such an expert, his future was limitless. However, Sakyamuni was furious that he couldn't find Zhuowen. He hated that he couldn't kill Zhuowen with his own hands. Bing Hui saw that Sakyamuni's expression was not good. He said in a low voice, "Junior brother, don't worry." Zhuowen was in the lower realms' starry sky. He couldn't have escaped. That Wu, Taiji, and 3 pure ones are the strongest people in this lower realm. Finding that Zhuowen shouldn't be a problem. "When the time comes, I will bring Zhuowen here and let you deal with him personally." Sakyamuni cupped his hands and said gratefully to Bing Hui, "Thank you, senior brother. Junior brother will never forget today's kindness." Bing Hui nodded in satisfaction. He knew that with Sakyamuni's undying Tao root, he would definitely soar into the sky in the future and become a supreme expert. Now that he had a good relationship with Bing Hui, he would also benefit from it in the future. This was also why Bing Hui had chased after Zhuowen all the way for Sakyamuni. Besides the fact that Zhuowen had the bloodline of the Pangu clan, it was also because Zhuowen had a great enmity with Bing Hui. "Junior brother, you are destined to become a supreme expert in the future. Your potential is limitless. That Zhuowen is just a thing of the past. After you go to the variant ghost clan and become the Ice Fiend King's disciple, your cultivation will rise rapidly. Not to mention the Heaven Breaker realm. You might even be able to reach the higher Carefree realm. That Zhuowen will only be left behind by you. In the future, you won't be people of the same world. You don't have to pay too much attention to this kind of person." Bing Hui said to Sakyamuni with a smile. Sakra nodded. He looked at the 100 domains in the distance. He knew that he was about to enter a new world and would have an even greater future. Meanwhile, Zhuowen was still in the starry skies of the lower realms, struggling to cultivate. Although his current cultivation was not as good as Zhuowen's, in the future, he would rapidly evolve, surpass Zhuowen, and leave him in the dust. In the future, he would face an even vaster world and even more monstrous geniuses. Zhuowen was no longer in his eyes. "Master is coming to get us." Bing Hui's excited voice sounded. In front of the chaotic starry sky, a blazing light instantly appeared and enveloped Bing Hui and Sakyamuni. The two of them turned into a beam of light and flew towards the 100 domains in the outer realm. Before leaving, Sakyamuni took a deep look at the starry sky fruit at the root of the primordial Hong tree. There was no trace of nostalgia in his eyes, only a trace of disdain and superiority. He knew that, from the moment he left here, he had embarked on a different path. He no longer cared about anyone in the starry sky of the lower world. He knew that he was destined to break through the heavens. It was basically impossible for the creatures in the starry sky of the lower world. Even Zhuowen, who had defeated him several times, could not. In the quiet courtyard, Zhuowen's breathing was steady. He slowly opened his eyes, which were shining with excitement. During this time, he had been healing in the palace of 3 purities. He had also deeply experienced the benefits of the Heaven Accessing Place. The Heaven Accessing Place was built in the chaotic starry sky. He could sense the more complete rules of the starry sky and the richer heavenly way energy in this world. Zhuowen also found that there was a kind of energy in the chaotic starry sky. This kind of energy was above the heavenly way energy. It was a higher level of energy. He knew that this kind of energy should only exist in the chaotic starry sky. It could be absorbed and used by heaven-breaking experts. Zhuowen's injuries were actually very serious. He had even injured his source. If he had been recuperating in the Xianmi heavenly domain, it would have taken him several months to completely recover, even with a large amount of healing medicine. However, Zhuowen only spent about a week in the heaven accessing place to completely recover from his injuries. This made Zhuowen realize the benefits of the heaven accessing place. He also found that the cultivation of his original body of the human clan had improved a lot during this period of cultivation. He was not far from the peak of the middle stage of the heaven-reaching master. If his original body of the human clan cultivated at this speed, Zhuowen estimated that he could directly break through to the late stage of the heaven-reaching master in 1 or 2 years. This speed was amazing. Zhuowen stood up. He planned to go to the chaotic starry sky. He wanted to try his luck and see if he could find other ancestral, wizard venomous insects in the chaotic starry sky. Walking out of the courtyard, Zhuowen was led by the red-crowned crane to see the 3 purities again. When the 3 purities learned that Zhuowen planned to enter the chaotic starry sky, they were not surprised and readily agreed. Chapter 3456. The chaotic valley, the mountain where the 3 purities palace was located, was called 3 Purities Mountain. The top of the mountain was where the 3 purities palace was located. The mountainside and the foot of the mountain were basically caves where many practitioners of the human tribe practiced. Of course, these caves were not provided to the practitioners for free. They had to pay an expensive rent regularly. Without rent, the practitioners would be driven out and unable to find a place to practice. In the chaotic starry sky, there were many precious materials, such as high-level ores and magic medicines, and even broken cultivation methods, and the remains of divine weapons. Once you found these things, you would become rich immediately. This was also the reason why there were so many shops on 3 Purities Street and Chaotic Street. Basically, treasures obtained from the chaotic starry sky were traded here. After leaving the 3 Purities Palace, the red-crowned crane showed the appearance of a 12 or 13-year-old Taoist boy. His face was pink and crystal clear, like a porcelain doll. As for Zhuowen, he had changed his appearance after leaving the 3 Purities Palace. Now, the Desolation Street's Wizard Tower was very active in capturing him and had issued a warrant for his arrest. He wouldn't be so foolish as to use his original appearance to head to the chaotic starry sky. The little Taoist boy took him to the back of the 3 Purities Mountain. Zhuowen found that there was a vast wasteland behind the 3 Purities Mountain. At the end of the wasteland stood an ancient and weathered giant gate. The giant gate was simple and unadorned, with many ancient patterns engraved on its surface. The giant gate was hollow, and its surface was overflowing with light and color. Obviously, it was set with an extremely powerful restriction formation. At this moment, many practitioners were gathered on the wasteland in front of the giant gate. Furthermore, there were flashes of light coming from within the giant door. There were cultivators going in and out of the giant door. Your Excellency, behind the giant gate is the chaotic starry sky. As long as you have the access token to the heaven accessing place, you are qualified to enter the chaotic starry sky. Lord 3 Purities asked me to tell you that the chaotic starry sky is different from the starry sky of the mortal world. It has a very strong coercion. Your Excellency, although you are powerful, you should be careful and not stay in the chaotic starry sky for too long. The little Taoist boy's voice was very clear, and he solemnly reminded Zhuowen. Zhuowen nodded and watched as the little Taoist boy left. Then he strode towards the giant door. Zhuowen's arrival didn't attract the attention of others in the wasteland. There were simply too many cultivators coming and going here. Unless one was a truly famous expert, no one would waste time to pay attention to others. There was no one controlling the giant door. Zhuowen took out his entry token, and the restrictions on the giant door didn't hinder him. Soon, he entered the giant door. After passing through the gate, he immediately sensed a terrifying might that was like countless mountains crashing down on Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen let out a muffled groan and almost coughed up blood. Zhuowen was shocked. He immediately activated his Panga's sacred body. His whole body emitted a crystal light to withstand the strong pressure that suddenly surged over. After stabilizing his body, Zhuowen began to pay attention to his surroundings. He found that he was still surrounded by a starry sky. However, the starry sky in front of him was deeper than the starry sky of the lower world. In the distance, there were flickering gold and blue stars. Of course, the biggest difference between the chaotic starry sky and the lower world's starry sky was the constant strong pressure. Even Zhuowen was almost injured and coughed up blood when he wasn't paying attention just now. In addition, Zhuowen felt that the surrounding starry sky was more vast and complete. Previously, he had cultivated in the Three Purities Palace and was separated from the chaotic starry sky by a layer of restriction. However, now that he had completely entered the chaotic starry sky, he found that the laws in the chaotic starry sky were clearer in his perception. There was no doubt that if he could withstand the pressure in the chaotic starry sky, the effect of cultivating here would be better than cultivating in the Three Purities Palace. Zhuowen's gaze fell on a valley suspended in the chaotic void in the distance. This valley was called the Chaotic Valley. It was the only valley in the chaotic void. It was also a treasure trove in the chaotic starry sky. This was because many things floated in from the chaotic starry sky outside. Some of them fell in the Chaotic Valley. The Chaotic Valley was one of the places with the highest probability of finding treasures. Moreover, it was much less dangerous than the other places. Therefore, the number of practitioners in the Chaotic Valley was the highest. Zhuowen didn't even think about it and rushed to the Chaotic Valley in the distance. He intended to sense whether he could sense the aura of the ancestral sorcery goo worms in the Chaotic Valley. Along the way, Zhuowen encountered a good number of cultivators. He also encountered a good number of fights. Most of them were due to unequal distribution of resources. Some were simply trying to rob him. Zhuowen didn't pay attention to them. This kind of thing was too common in the chaotic starry sky. He saw 4 or 5 robberies in just 2 hours. About 6 hours later, Zhuowen finally arrived at the Chaotic Valley. The valley was very large and was derived from the depths of the chaotic starry sky. Millions of kilometers deep in the valley, he found a bounded domain emitting white light. He knew that this bounded domain was the boundary of the heaven accessing place. On the other side of the boundary was the real chaotic starry sky, which was not restricted by the heaven accessing place. The pressure there was much stronger than the chaotic starry sky in the heaven accessing place. Once crossing the boundary, except for the half-step breaking heaven realm practitioners, the rest of the practitioners in the heaven accessing place would definitely die on the spot. There were many practitioners in the Chaotic Valley. There were both practitioners of the human clan and experts of the alien clan. Zhuowen found a remote corner and sat down cross-legged. He began to mobilize the power of the ancestral sorcery goo worms in his body. He intended to use the connection between the ancestral sorcery goo worms to search for other ancestral sorcery goo worms in the Chaotic Valley. About a quarter of an hour later, Zhuowen frowned and slowly opened his eyes. He found that the ancestral sorcery goo worms in his body were indifferent. That was to say, there were no ancestral sorcery goo worms in the Chaotic Valley. Fellow Taoist, I see that you are alone. Did you come to explore the chaotic starry sky alone? Suddenly, a slightly charming voice came from not far away. Zhuowen stood up and looked to the right. There, a charming and beautiful woman slowly walked over. Her beautiful eyes were full of charm as she looked at Zhuowen with a smile. Zhuowen glanced at the woman and found that she was a practitioner of the human clan. Moreover, her cultivation was good. She was at the peak of the heaven accessing master. Zhuowen nodded and said, "Yes, the rent for my cave residence is due. I had no choice but to come out and explore. Maybe I can find a good opportunity." The charming woman said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist, you and I are in the same boat. I also came out because the rent for my cave residence was due." Speaking of this, the charming woman transmitted her voice to Zhuowen. "Fellow Taoist, I found a treasure place. It is suspected to be the graveyard of the experts in the chaotic starry sky. However, it is full of danger. I can't go in alone. Since you are alone, why don't you explore the graveyard with me?" Chapter 34:57. Chao Shulan, the charming woman, revealed a cautious expression and transmitted a voice transmission. "Yes, I saw it by accident. That place is very mysterious, and it's near the border of the depths of the chaotic valley." Zhuowen's heart stirred, but he soon felt that something was fishy and asked, "Fellow Taoist, why are you so sure that it's the graveyard of the experts in the chaotic starry sky?" "You'll know when you go there. There are tombstones erected there, but it's too dangerous. I can't get close by myself, and I need a few more people to join forces to enter the graveyard. If it weren't for the fact that you're a human cultivator and you're all alone, I wouldn't have shared these benefits with you." The charming woman rebuked. Zhuowen smiled slightly. He didn't believe what this woman said. Of course, he wasn't afraid of this woman playing any tricks. On the surface, his aura was only at the middle stage of the heaven-piercing master realm, but his true strength was enough to destroy a peak heaven-piercing master in a few moves. Moreover, Zhuowen also wanted to see if the so-called graveyard of the experts in the chaotic starry sky that this woman spoke of really existed. Now, he was really too curious about the 100 domains outside the chaotic starry sky. If he had the chance, he really wanted to leave the lower layer of the starry sky and go to the 100 domains to take a look. But Zhuowen knew that it was not very possible for him at present, unless he really cultivated to the heaven-breaking realm. Moreover, he knew that once he broke through to the heaven-breaking realm and cultivated the primordial technique in the grand word stone in his hand, he would definitely rise rapidly. Back then, he had asked the heaven-splitting axe's artifact spirit about the primordial technique. At that time, the heaven-splitting axe's artifact spirit didn't know that he had obtained a part of the primordial technique and told him the origin of the primordial technique. It was said that this technique had existed since ancient times, and it was a very terrifying technique that was born from heaven and earth. It surpassed all the techniques in the 100 domains and was a true supreme technique. Once such a technique appeared, it would definitely cause endless bloodshed in the 100 domains. Of course, the primordial technique was truly too mysterious. Since the birth of the 100 territories until now, this cultivation technique had only appeared a mere few times, and every single time it appeared, it would cause a peerless war that caused the deaths of countless experts. Once a cultivator obtained such a cultivation method, without exception, they would become a supreme expert in the 100 outer realms. Their names would shake the entire 100 outer realms. Zhuowen was very confident that as long as he could advance to shattering heaven tier, then he would be able to cultivate the ancient primordial technique. When he entered the 100 outer domains, his evolution speed would definitely not be slower than the geniuses of the 100 outer domains. He might even be faster and stronger. In the end, Zhuowen agreed to join the charming woman's team. The seductive woman was ecstatic to see Zhuowen agree, and she led Zhuowen into the depths of the chaotic valley. Along the way, the two of them chatted and became familiar with each other. Zhuowen learned that this woman's name was Chao Shulan, and she was once the ancestor of a Dao Palace level force in the North Dao domain of the Xianmi Heavenly domain. Later, in order to pursue a higher realm, she left the Xianmi Heavenly domain and entered the Heavenly Secret Realm. When Chao Shulan first entered the Heavenly Secret Realm, she was only at the early stage of the Heavenly Master realm. Now, her cultivation was already at the peak of the Heavenly Master realm. It was said that she was actually not far from the half-step shattering heaven tier, and she only lacked an opportunity. In Chao Shulan's opinion, the graveyard of the experts of the chaotic stars was her opportunity. During the conversation, Zhuowen did not give his real name. After all, the name Zhuowen was taboo in the heavenly secret realm. Now that he was wanted by Wu Taiji, Zhuowen naturally would not be stupid enough to use this name. The pseudonym he used was Mu Qinxue, which meant that he missed Mu Qinxue. Soon, Zhuowen and Chao Shulan arrived at the end of the chaotic valley. Standing at the end of the valley, Zhuowen could clearly sense the powerful restriction formation set up at the border. At the end of the valley, Zhuowen saw two people. Both of them were men. One of them was an old man with a brandy nose. He wore a loose black robe and held a wine gourd in his hand. As he drank, he sized up Zhuowen. The other was a thin, middle-aged man with a cold expression. He carried a long sword on his back, and his body was as sharp as an unsheathed sword. His aura was very unusual. Both of them were not simple, especially the thin, middle-aged man. Although he was also at the peak of the Heavenly Master realm, his aura was stronger than Chao Shulan's. As for the brandy-nosed old man, his cultivation was slightly weaker. He was probably at the late stage of the Heavenly Master realm, no matter if it was the old man or the middle-aged man. After Chao Shulan brought Zhuowen in, they all cast their gazes on Zhuowen, constantly sizing him up. The brandy-nosed old man sized up Zhuowen, then looked at Chao Shulan and asked doubtfully, "Chao Shulan, why did you find a guy who is only at the middle stage of the Heavenly Master realm? Is his level of array, Dao, very high like me?" Although the middle-aged man did not speak, his gaze also fell on Chao Shulan, and his eyes revealed a look of inquiry. Chao Shulan said with a smile, "I really couldn't find a suitable person. This little brother just happened to come to the chaotic valley alone, so I chose him." Zhuowen's eyes were calm, and he did not feel the slightest strange emotion from Chao Shulan's disdainful words. With this kid's cultivation, he won't be able to walk long after he leaves. The brandy-nosed old man said worriedly, "I still have a Heavenly Master talisman on me. It's enough to protect him until he reaches that place." Chao Shulan said with a faint smile. Although Zhuowen's heart was filled with doubts, he did not interrupt. He could tell that these people were only looking for him to make up the numbers. After all, his cultivation was the weakest among them. It was pardonable that these people did not pay much attention to him. Fellow Taoist, Zhuo. These two are fellow Taoist Mo Xinhong and fellow Taoist Su Yuanlong. Chao Shulan pointed at the brandy-nosed old man and the middle-aged man and introduced them to Zhuowen. The brandy-nosed old man was called Mo Xinhong, and it was said that he was a rogue cultivator. The middle-aged man, with a long sword on his back, was called Su Yuanlong, and he was once the ancestor of a Dao Palace level force in the Xian Mi Heavenly Domain's southern Dao domain. He was very strong and was said to be the main force in this expedition to that mysterious place. Chao Shulan also introduced Zhuowen to the brandy-nosed old man and the middle-aged man. The brandy-nosed old man grinned at Zhuowen, but his smile was full of malice and did not have the slightest intention of welcoming him. As for the middle-aged man, he did not even look at Zhuowen. He crossed his arms over his chest and closed his eyes to rest. Zhuowen did not care. Instead, he looked at Chao Shulan and asked, "Fellow Taoist Chao, where is the mysterious place you mentioned?" Chao Shulan's eyes were solemn as she said, "It's just outside the boundary." "Oh, outside the boundary? There are rules in the heaven accessing place that you can't leave the boundary without permission. The chaotic starry sky outside is too dangerous, and the pressure is even stronger than inside. Even a half step from heaven-breaking, realm might die if he goes out, Zhuowen said in a deep voice. Chapter 3458, The Golden Coffin. I have the best ascension grade talisman, the Divine Protection Talisman. After going out, holding on for 2 hours is no problem. Back then, there was a gap in this boundary, and I accidentally left the boundary and entered that mysterious place where I saw a coffin with a very terrifying aura. I'm sure that the person buried in that coffin is definitely a legendary heaven-breaking realm elite. However, that pressure was too terrifying, and it was difficult for me to get close with my own strength. That's why I wanted to gather everyone's strength and explore together. It's a pity that the cultivators of Sanqing Street found this gap and sent a divine, a Ray Master of Heaven Realm, to patch it up. When the time comes, according to the contribution of the 4 of us, the items inside will be distributed according to our discretion. Chao Shulan said in a low voice. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly, and he looked deeply at Chao Shulan. This Chao Shulan was not simple. She actually had the Divine Protection Talisman, and by the looks of it, there was more than one. Zhuowen had heard of the Divine Protection Talisman before. It was a top-grade defensive talisman among the Ascension-grade talismans, especially against energy forms like pressure. This kind of talisman was very precious, and it was basically very difficult to buy in the outside world. Even if it could be bought, it would also be at a sky-high price. This Chao Shulan could take out 4 of these talismans at once. One had to admit that this woman's foundation was very deep. After Chao Shulan finished speaking, Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong both nodded and cupped their hands at Chao Shulan. This time, Chao Shulan had indeed put in most of her effort. After all, she took out 4 divine protection talismans at once, which were priceless. They had already discussed beforehand that when distributing, Chao Shulan would get the most. Fellow Taoist Mo, next, it's up to you to break the restrictions of this boundary. Chao Shulan looked at Mo Xinhong and said. Mo Xinhong chuckled and said, although I'm only a peak creation grade formation master, the restrictions of this boundary are of ascension grade, but the range is too large. With my level of formation Tao, creating a small hole is no problem. As he spoke, Mo Xinhong took out array flags one after another and began to break the restrictions of the boundary. Chao Shulan and Su Yuanlong stood to the side, waiting silently. No one said a word to Zhuowen. Zhuowen was a little speechless. He was a divine master of the formation of heaven. If he wanted to open a small gap in the restriction of this world, it would only take a moment. However, it was clear that Chao Shulan, Su Yuanlong, and the others really treated him as a stopgap. This made Zhuowen feel slightly helpless, and he could only silently stand at the side and watch. At the same time, Zhuowen was still wary of Chao Shulan. This Chao Shulan was not a simple person. He was afraid that she was hiding something from him. Once they reached that mysterious place, he planned to be wary of this woman. After several hours, Chao Shulan and Su Yuanlong were getting impatient. Only then did Mo Xinhong manage to open a hole that was about the size of a person. On the other hand, Mo Xinhong's forehead was already covered in cold sweat, and he was panting heavily. Breaking the restriction this time had consumed a great deal of his mental strength. This hole won't last long. We have to get out quickly, Mo Xinhong said to Chao Shulan and the others. Chao Shulan nodded. She took out 3 divine protection talismans and handed them to Mo Xinhong, Su Yuanlong, and Zhuowen. After we get out, activate these divine protection talismans immediately and then follow me. As Chao Shulan spoke, she took the lead and entered the boundary hole. At the same time, she activated the divine protection talismans on her. Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong were not to be outdone. They followed closely behind and activated the divine protection talismans. Zhuowen was the last to go out. The moment he entered the chaotic starry sky outside, he felt an even more terrifying pressure. Countless cracks instantly appeared on his body, and blood began to flow from the cracks. This frightened Zhuowen so much that he quickly activated the divine protection talismans. A red barrier suddenly appeared around him. At the same time, the terrifying pressure on his body had also been greatly weakened. However, Zhuowen could feel that the red barrier formed by the divine protection talisman was violently shaking. He knew that the divine protection talisman wouldn't be able to last for long under such terrifying pressure. Zhuowen silently followed behind Chao Shulan and the others. After about half an hour, Chao Shulan stopped in front of a huge meteorite floating in the starry sky. Upon closer inspection, Zhuowen realized that the meteorite was half spherical. He then realized that the meteorite was actually a destroyed planet. The mysterious place is at the core of this destroyed planet. Chao Shulan pointed at the half-destroyed planet in front of them with certainty. The three of them did not speak. They only nodded and signaled Chao Shulan to continue leading the way. The four of them entered the destroyed planet and reached the deepest part. The moment they reached the core of the planet, the red barrier formed by the divine protection talismans actually shook violently. A pressure even more terrifying than the chaotic starry sky outside suddenly came from the core. Only then did the four of them realize that there was a huge, wordless tombstone erected in the depths of the core. This wordless tombstone looked very ordinary, as if it was forged from ordinary granite. However, this wordless tombstone just stood there, exuding an extremely terrifying pressure. About a few hundred meters behind the wordless tombstone, there was a large wasteland. In the center of the wasteland, there was a place where divine swords were inserted into the ground, emitting brilliant light, forming a circular fence. Furthermore, the hilt of each divine sword was bound together by black iron chains, forming a circle around them. Zhuowen's eyes were like torches. He could tell at a glance that these divine swords that were inserted into the ground carried a destructive aura. These were definitely not ordinary divine swords. The aura was too terrifying. Zhuowen suspected that these divine swords might have surpassed the Heaven Ascension grade, or even the half-step Heaven Breaker grade. Could it be a Heaven Breaker grade divine weapon? Zhuowen's pupils shrank as he thought of a bold guess. It must be known that the ones who had gained the most in the entire Heaven Access secret realm were definitely Wu Taiji, the master of the Wu Tower, and Taoist Three Purities, the master of the Three Purities Palace. Wu Taiji had obtained an incomplete Heaven Breaker grade technique and broken through from the fourth Heaven's Blight to the fifth Heaven's Blight, shocking the entire Heaven Access secret realm. As for Taoist Three Purities, he had obtained a broken Heaven Breaker grade divine weapon and was extremely powerful. Even Wu Taiji did not dare to offend Three Purities and fight them head-on. But now, the divine swords inserted into the ground behind the wordless tombstone were very likely complete Heaven Breaker grade divine weapons. How could Zhuowen not be shocked? This was definitely a frighteningly rich harvest. Zhuowen also noticed that there was a rather large golden coffin floating in the center of the fence formed by the divine swords. The golden coffin was bound by black chains, which were connected to the hilts of the swords that formed the fence around it. The aura emanating from the golden coffin was even more terrifying. Zhuowen even wondered if he could reach the golden coffin with his peak 8-star Pangu's sacred body. There must be a Heaven Breaker grade expert buried in this coffin. Chapter 3459. Wordless Tombstone Chao Shulan and Mo Xinhong's eyes shone brightly as they looked at the floating golden coffin behind the wordless tombstone in pleasant surprise. just the divine swords around the golden coffin, were all extraordinary. They were heaven-breaking divine tools that transcended this starry sky, and the owner of this floating golden coffin was definitely extraordinary. And to be able to have these heaven-breaking divine tools protecting him, he was definitely a very powerful heaven-breaking tier elite. Of course, Chao Shulan was the calmest. It wasn't her first time entering this mysterious place, and she had already experienced the grand occasion here. Fellow Taoist Chao, this is a great opportunity. I really didn't expect you to actually find it. Mo Shinhong grinned, his eyes filled with excitement and passion. The taciturn Su Yuanlong's expression was not as calm as before. Even Zhuowen was shocked by the scene before him, but Zhuowen quickly calmed down. His divine sense was constantly observing the golden coffin behind the wordless tombstone. The pressure here was very terrifying, even more powerful and oppressive than the chaotic starry sky outside, especially the pressure behind the wordless tombstone. Zhuowen was even more terrifying. Zhuowen was sure that even with the protection of the divine protection talisman, if he crossed the wordless tombstone, the divine protection talisman would immediately shatter. At that time, his entire body would have to bear the onslaught of that terrifying pressure. Thinking of this, Zhuowen looked at Chao Shulan and said solemnly, "Fellow Taoist Chao, the pressure behind the wordless tombstone is even stronger. Even with the divine protection talisman, I'm afraid we can't approach that golden coffin and might even lose our lives." Su Yuanlong and Mo Shinhong also came back to their senses. Their divine senses were very powerful, and they naturally sensed the terror behind the wordless tombstone. They knew that, with their strength, stepping into that place would only lead to disaster. Chao Shulan smiled and said, "Everyone, don't worry. I've been here a few times, so I naturally know more than you all." As she spoke, Chao Shulan took out 4 shards that emitted azure gold light and tossed 3 of them to Su Yuanlong, Mo Shinhong, and Zhuowen. Zhuowen took the fragment in his hand and discovered that it was a bronze fragment. The surface of the fragment was engraved with lifelike divine birds and strange beasts, and it was emitting a greenish gold color. These 4 fragments are the greatest loot I've obtained in all these years in the chaotic cosmos. They're fragments of a bronze cauldron. Although I don't know the exact grade of that bronze cauldron, it's definitely a divine tool that's beyond the half-step heaven-crushing level. These 4 fragments contain a powerful combination attack. The 4 of you should study it first. Then, according to the joint attack method in this fragment, the 4 of us should be able to break into the front of the golden coffin. Chao Shulan said in a deep voice. Zhuowen observed the bronze shard in his hand and probed it with his divine sense. He immediately sensed some information from the shard. There was indeed a combined attack method recorded on it. It required 4 people to combine their strength and condense their strength into a large cauldron phantom that had an extremely strong defense. Mo Shinhong, Su Yuanlong, and Zhuowen were all extraordinary cultivators, and they quickly finished studying it. Then, under Chao Shulan's guidance, the 4 of them started to summon the bronze shard, which floated above their heads. Everyone, channel your strength into the bronze shard. Don't hold back. Otherwise, something might happen behind the blank tombstone. Chao Shulan urged the 3 of them. Su Yuanlong and Mo Shinhong nodded and channeled their heavenly Tao energy into the bronze shard without holding back. Zhuowen was a little hesitant. He felt that channeling all of his strength into the bronze shard was a little inappropriate. However, seeing Chao Shulan and the others doing this, he couldn't help but give it his all. Of course, Zhuowen's so-called giving it his all was only channeling his strength into the heaven-crushing master intermediate stage. After all, the power of his Panga's sacred body was far too terrifying. If he gave it his all, He would most likely surpass everyone in this group. That would be too ostentatious, and Zhuowen wouldn't do that. Chao Shulan carefully observed Zhuowen and the others and found that they were indeed giving it their all. She nodded with satisfaction and began to activate the bronze shard in her hand. With a buzzing sound, Chao Shulan's bronze shard emitted a blazing azure gold color. Then, the other 3 bronze shards did the same. They resonated with each other and formed the shadow of a huge bronze cauldron. The bronze cauldron shadow exuded an ancient and vicissitude aura, and a vast majesty overflowed from the cauldron. As soon as the bronze cauldron shadow appeared, Zhuowen immediately felt that the uncomfortable pressure around him disappeared. It was all blocked by the bronze cauldron shadow. Let's go. Chao Shulan was very decisive. With the bronze shard floating above her head, she walked toward the blank tombstone. Zhuowen and the others followed closely behind and soon passed the blank tombstone. Boom, boom, boom. The moment they passed the blank tombstone, a deafening sound came from the surface of the bronze cauldron. It rumbled like thunder. The 4 people's faces changed drastically. They felt a pressure that was even stronger than the one outside the blank tombstone. Their bodies were sore and numb, and it was difficult for them to move. They finally knew how terrifying the pressure behind the blank tombstone was. They used the joint attack method to summon the bronze cauldron to protect themselves, but they still felt such a terrifying pressure. It was obvious how terrifying the pressure here was. Calm down and continue to move forward. This time, we must reach the golden coffin. Chao Shulan's beautiful eyes flashed with a determined light, and she said in a deep voice. The 4 people did not speak. They all focused on activating the bronze shards and slowly approached the golden coffin. Puff! The moment they arrived in front of the golden coffin, the pressure swept over like a tide. The surrounding bronze cauldron shadows trembled violently and began to distort. Mo Xinhong's cultivation was the weakest. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his forehead was covered with cold sweat. His face was extremely pale. Chao Shulan and Su Yuanlong's cultivation was much higher than Mo Xinhong's. Although they did not spit out blood, their faces did not look good. Zhuowen had the powerful Pangu's sacred body, so he barely blocked the terrifying shockwave of pressure. However, in order not to arouse others' suspicion, he spat out blood like Mo Xinhong and pretended to be very weak. Fellow Taoist Chao, there is a powerful restriction around the golden coffin. This restriction is far stronger than a sky-level formation. What should we do? I can't break the restriction around it. After Mo Xinhong calmed down, he found that there was a very powerful restriction around the golden coffin. Its level was very high, and he had no idea where to start. Zhuowen's eyes became serious. His formation skills were already very high, reaching the sky level. However, when faced with the restriction in front of him, he had no idea where to start. He knew that the restriction around the golden coffin was definitely beyond the sky level. It was very extraordinary. Chapter 3460. The bronze fragments. Su Yuanlong frowned and looked at Chao Shulan in confusion. Chao Shulan had been here a few times and should know the situation around the golden coffin. Don't look at me like that. The restriction around the golden coffin is indeed very strong, but it doesn't have to be broken by a god formation master. I have my own way of breaking it. Take the bronze fragments and place them around the golden coffin. Then pour your blood essence into the fragments and break the formation. Chao Shulan said with certainty. Mo Xinhong frowned and said, Fellow Taoist Chao, why are you so sure that the bronze fragments can break the formation? I've checked it just now. This is a ceiling formation. Your method might not work. However, Chao Shulan said seriously, Taoist Mo, I'll be honest with you. I obtained these 4 bronze fragments near this wordless tombstone. I also obtained the method to break this formation. These 4 bronze fragments are the key to breaking the formation. Of course, if fellow Taoist Mo doesn't believe me, you can choose to back out. I will find other fellow Taoists to work with me. Mo Xinhong's expression changed slightly. He was already here, especially when he saw the heaven-breaking divine swords around the golden coffin. Needless to say, there must be something even more precious in the golden coffin. As long as he could get any one of these items, Mo Xinhong would definitely be able to rise to the top. He would not let go of such a rare opportunity. I believe in fellow Taoist Chao. Su Yuanlong cut open his right palm. A crack appeared on his palm and blood spurted out. Su Yuanlong came to the east side of the golden coffin and grabbed the bronze fragments. Although the 4 of them were temporarily separated, the bronze fragments were the combined strength of the 4 of them. There was a bronze cauldron shadow above each of their heads that resisted the terrifying pressure from the surroundings. When Mo Xinhong saw that Su Yuanlong was so straightforward, even though he had some doubts in his heart, the temptation of the golden coffin in front of him was just too great. He did not think too much, as he also cut open his palm and held his bronze fragment as he stood on the west side. Chao Shulan stood to the north of the golden coffin and looked at Zhuowen, who was still standing to the side, and said, "Taoist Chua, why haven't you started yet?" Zhuowen took a deep look at Chao Shulan, his eyes flashing. He always felt that Chao Shulan was a little strange. The ceiling formation around the golden coffin was definitely not something that could be broken just by activating the bronze shards with his blood essence. After all, he was a heaven-reaching divine array master, and his array Dao level was much higher than Mo Xinhong's. He could tell at a glance that the restriction formation around the golden coffin was unusual. Moreover, from what he knew, wasn't using blood essence to break the restrictions of the formation a blood sacrifice. However, the blood sacrifice didn't only require blood essence. It also required the sacrifice of the target's life. When Chao Shulan saw that Zhuowen had yet to make a move, she said impatiently, "Taoist Shua, what is the meaning of this? Now, you're the only one left. Don't you want the treasure in the golden coffin?" At this moment, Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong also looked at Zhuowen with a strange expression. They didn't know what this new recruit was afraid of. Zhuowen was silent. He slowly walked to the south of the golden coffin, made a cut on his palm, and grabbed the bronze shards. Chao Shulan's beautiful eyes showed a trace of relief when she saw that Zhuowen was so sensible. Then, she also made a cut on her palm and held the bronze shards tightly in her hand. When Zhuowen's palm touched the bronze shards, he immediately felt that the blood essence in his body was rapidly being absorbed by the bronze shards. Moreover, the speed of absorption was so fast that it was completely beyond his imagination. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and used the torch dragon's eyes to see through the essence of the restriction formation around the golden coffin. Then, he secretly threw out the beast bone formation plate and started to set up a temporary teleportation formation around the coffin with his supreme array Dao. Outside the wordless tombstone, a speck of dust slowly landed on the surface of the rock in the corner and flickered with a faint light. The speck of dust was formed by the Great World. After Zhuowen followed Chao Shulan and the others to the back of the wordless tombstone, he secretly hid the Great World outside the tombstone, just in case. While the doppelganger was setting up a temporary teleportation formation around the golden coffin, the main body was also setting up a temporary teleportation formation in the Great World. Once the doppelganger was in danger, he could immediately activate the temporary teleportation formation and directly teleport into the Great World. After the temporary teleportation formation was set up Zhuowen wasn't in a hurry to leave. His eyes fell on Chao Shulan, and he found that Chao Shulan's face was also very pale. She looked like she had lost a lot of blood. Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong's faces changed drastically. Mo Xinhong hurriedly shouted, "Fellow Daoist Chao, what's going on? This bronze shards has been absorbing my blood essence. If this goes on, I'm afraid my blood essence will be sucked dry." Su Yuanlong's face was also very pale. He looked at Chao Shulan and said in a low voice, "Fellow Daoist Chao, you have to give me an explanation." Chao Shulan's pretty face was extremely pale. Her lips trembled, but Zhuowen saw a strange smile appear at the corner of Chao Shulan's mouth. It was just a flash. "Don't worry, the two of you," Chao Shulan said. "This seal is very powerful, so it naturally needs a lot of blood essence. As long as we hold on for a while, we will be able to break this seal. When that time comes, there will be a lot of heaven-breaking divine artifacts and divine herbs. Then we will be rich." Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong looked at each other. Although they were vigilant, they couldn't help the greed in their hearts and continued to hold on. "The two of you, this is a blood sacrifice method. It's a trap. We have all been deceived by this woman. We have to work together to break free of this place. Otherwise, we will all die here." Zhuowen reminded them. He had already felt that something was wrong, and now he wanted to speak his mind. He wanted to work together with Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong to break free. Sure enough, Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong's hearts trembled. They looked at Zhuowen and then at Chao Shulan. "Fellow Taoists, this person's cultivation is the lowest, so he is useless. Now that a lot of his blood essence has been absorbed, he is afraid. However, this is a critical moment. If you leave now, everything will be for naught. Of course, if you don't want the heaven-breaking divine artifacts and divine herbs, then feel free to leave. In any case, I won't object to it. After all, you came here of your own free will. I won't force you." Chao Shulan sighed softly and said in a slightly disappointed tone. Chao Shulan's actions immediately caused Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong to be surprised and bewildered. When they saw that Chao Shulan was doing the same as them and was using blood essence to remove the restrictions, the doubts in their hearts temporarily dispersed. Fortune comes from danger. A coward like you must have never seen the world. You are so scared in such a short time. How dare you instigate us to leave? What a joke. Mo Xinhong snorted at Zhuowen. "If you dare to leave without permission, I will kill you." Su Yuanlong threatened Zhuowen. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. It seemed that Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong didn't believe him at all. Chapter 3461, that the seizing Pluochuan's silence was a sign of submission in the eyes of Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong. Disdainful smiles appeared on their faces as they ignored Zhuowen. In their eyes, Zhuowen was the weakest among them. If he really ran away, they could easily suppress him. Therefore, they didn't pay much attention to Zhuowen. As time went by, Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong's faces became paler and paler. They began to feel weak. Half of their blood essence had been sucked away. They began to feel dizzy and dizzy. Zhuowen, on the other hand, was much better than Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong. His Pangu's sacred body was too heaven-defying. His blood essence was soaring. Moreover, when the bronze shard was absorbing his blood essence, he deliberately controlled the flow of his blood essence. Only a small part of it was absorbed by the bronze shard. However, Zhuowen pretended to be worse than Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong, as if he would faint at any time. Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong finally realized that something was wrong. They began to struggle, trying to break free from the bronze shard. However, they were shocked to find that the bronze shard which had absorbed nearly half of their blood essence, produced a terrifying suction force. It firmly sucked Emo Shinhong and Su Yuanlong to the surface of the restriction around the golden coffin. Fellow Taoist Chow, are you still not done? Emo Shinhong was covered in cold sweat. His legs were trembling. Too much of his blood essence had been absorbed. He was about to lose his balance. He looked at Chow Shulan. Su Yuanlong's eyes also became unfriendly. There was even a trace of anger. He also looked at Chow Shulan. Soon, they found that Chow Shulan was on the north side. She was spasming and twitching. Her aura was very weak. She was all skin and bones, like a mummy. However, Chow Shulan's eyes were emitting a golden light. Her pupils had turned golden, as if they were gilded. They looked very strange and deep. Emo Shinhong and Su Yuanlong saw Chow Shulan's strange appearance and felt a chill in their hearts. They felt that something was wrong. Chow Shulan did not pay attention to the bewildered Emo Shinhong and Su Yuanlong. Her pair of golden eyes looked at Zhuo Wen, and the corners of her mouth revealed a cold smile. Zhuo Nianxue, stop pretending. With your physique, how can you be so weak? Chow Shulan said. Her voice, it didn't sound like a woman's. Translation: Chow Shulan. Zhuo looked at Chow Shulan. And Chow Shulan. Chow Shulan. Chow Shulan. Chow was Chow Shulan. Was Chow Shulan. Was Shulan was translation. Was Chow Shulan. Chow Shulan. Chow Shulan translation Emo Shinhong. And Su Yuanlong also felt that something was wrong with Chow Shulan. They desperately urged their heavenly energy to resist the terrifying suction force from the bronze shard. Unfortunately, the more the two of them struggled, the stronger the suction force from the bronze shard became. Under this kind of consumption, they became weaker and weaker. Lu translation. Translation is attention. Chow Shulan glanced at Emo Shinhong and Su Yuanlong. With a gentle wave of her withered arm, the bronze fragments in front of Emo Shinhong and Su Yuanlong exploded. Blazing azure gold light enveloped the two of them. The two of them screamed and exploded into a bloody mist. They couldn't be more dead. As for the blood mist formed by the two of them, it all surged into the golden coffin within the restriction and was completely absorbed by it. Possession? Zhuo Wen revealed a strange expression as he looked at Chow Shulan's golden eyes. He already had some guesses about Chow Shulan's current identity. Haha, you are very smart. You guess my identity. I admire you because you have a powerful bloodline. I smell the scent of the Pangu clan in your blood. It seems that you are related to the Pangu clan. Chow Shulan licked her lips and looked at Zhuo Wen with her golden eyes. There was a hint of greed in her eyes. Are you from the 100 Territories? Zhuo Wen narrowed his eyes and asked coldly. Oh, it seems that you know a lot. You even know about the 100 Territories. But you are a dead man after all. You don't need to know so much. You just need to be obedient and let me possess your body. Chow Shulan grinned. Then she exploded into a bloody mist. Her blood essence was absorbed by the golden coffin. Then the chains around the golden coffin shattered. The lid of the golden coffin suddenly opened. A golden light rushed out from inside and rushed toward Zhuo Wen's glabella. The aura of this golden light was too terrifying. As soon as it appeared, the surrounding divine swords all trembled violently. The black chains connected to the divine swords all broke. As for the seals that were placed around the golden coffin, they were instantly shattered. It was simply too powerful. Before Zhuo Wen could react, the golden light had rushed into his glabella and entered his divine soul. Ah, my luck is not bad. After waiting for so long in this lower realm's starry sky, A decent physical body has finally appeared. Although this body contains the bloodline of the Pangu clan, after I completely possess this body, I will find an opportunity to buy a meridian-dissolving pill to completely dissolve the bloodline of the Pangu clan. In case those clans who have a grudge against me find trouble because of this bloodline. The voice in the golden light was ancient and vicissitudes of life. He was very proud and felt that this possession would be smooth sailing. With his strength, who in this mere starry sky of the lower realms could resist the attack of his soul. So he didn't take Zhuowen seriously at all. Zhuowen's face was pale, and he looked very painful. He could not help but hold his head and keep rolling on the ground. At the same time, the Pangu banner in the depths of his divine soul began to activate. The blazing white light illuminated the entire divine soul world. Bang! 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 In an instant, the Pangu banner blocked the golden light. The golden light also revealed its true body. It was a very young man. Is this the Pangu banner, one of the most precious treasures of the Pangu clan? How can a mixed blood member of the Pangu clan have such a precious treasure? The young man showed an incredulous expression, but soon he realized that something was wrong. He sneered and said, "It's just a replica. It's not the real Pangu banner." The young man did not care. He suddenly threw out a hand and hit the Pangu banner. The Pangu banner was not to be outdone. It burst out with a terrifying white light to fight against the young man. Suddenly, in Zhuowen's spiritual world, a terrifying battle wave was set off, surging like a stormy sea. This caused Zhuowen to suffer. His soul was in chaos like an overturned sea, causing him to suffer extreme pain. He held his head as he ceaselessly rolled about on the ground, and he was in an extremely sorry state. At this moment, the golden coffin in the center produced a suction force, trying to suck Zhuowen into the golden coffin. Zhuowen was alert. He knew that if he entered the golden coffin, he would never have a chance to escape. Although he had a splitting headache, Zhuowen reluctantly activated the temporary teleportation formation that he had set up. Chapter 3462, Shattered Divine. Sense in the great world. In the pavilion of the island in the middle of the lake, the main body sat cross-legged beside the lake, while the clone spasmed and rolled around. In the world of his divine sense, the battle of possession was still ongoing, and it was becoming more and more intense. The Pangu banner was already heaven-defying enough, and it allowed Zhuowen's divine sense to be as powerful as a half-step heaven-crushing cultivator. However, the divine sense of the possessor was even more powerful, and it was the divine sense of a heaven-crushing cultivator. Although it had been dormant for countless years and seemed to have suffered severe injuries, it was still able to fiercely suppress Zhuowen's divine sense. Cold sweat dripped down the main body's forehead. There was a deep connection between the clone and the main body's divine sense. Now that the clone's divine sense was suffering a powerful attack and enduring terrifying pain, the main body was also suffering. Xiao He, the sacrificial death sword, and the blood immortal sword all surrounded Zhuowen, guarding Zhuowen. They were all very worried. In order not to worry his family, Zhuowen didn't tell Xiao He to notify the Ryuka people stationed in the Great World. Instead, he silently endured on the island in the middle of the lake. At this moment, Zhuowen was continuously swallowing heaven-crushing divine pills to repair his divine sense. He could tell that the cultivator in the golden coffin was definitely a terrifying supreme being at his peak. However, this person's injuries were severe, and he could only rely on possession to survive. His divine sense was most likely also severely damaged. Otherwise, with the terrifying power of a heaven-crushing cultivator's divine sense, Zhuowen's divine sense would be instantly destroyed and replaced. However, that cultivator had only gained the upper hand now and hadn't completely possessed Zhuowen. Zhuowen knew that he had a chance to survive this possession battle. Time passed one day after another. Zhuowen lay on the island in the middle of the lake, continuously rolling around, enduring the pain, and continuously swallowing divine pills to repair his divine sense. At the same time, he also used this opportunity to continuously cultivate his divine sense sword intent. The divine soul sword intent was indeed extraordinary. In the battle of possession, his divine soul was almost shattered into pieces, shattered into many pieces. Enduring the pain, he activated the spiritual soul sword intent cultivation method, instantly transforming the shattered spiritual soul into spiritual soul sword intent. Then, the spiritual soul sword intent immediately launched a terrifying attack that blasted into the expert's spiritual soul. For a time, this battle of possession was in a stalemate. Although Zhuowen was at a disadvantage, he was not completely crushed. He had a chance to counterattack. Damn it! How is this kid's divine sense so powerful? Even the divine sense of a half-step heaven-crushing cultivator isn't as difficult to deal with as him. Also, he actually knows such a powerful divine soul attack. I really miscalculated. The expert who had taken over the body had a gloomy look on his face. After attacking for a long time without success, he became somewhat anxious. His divine soul was indeed stronger than Zhuowen's, but his injuries were too severe. His divine soul could not be maintained for too long, so he had to end the battle quickly. But now he was actually entangled with an ant from the starry sky of the lower realm for so long. This was something he had not expected. In particular, the spiritual soul sword intent that Zhuowen had condensed was actually quite a big hindrance to him. Although the spiritual soul sword intent could only cause him light injuries, every time he shattered Zhuowen's spiritual soul, the shattered spiritual soul would immediately condense spiritual soul sword intent and attack him with no regard for his life. Ants could kill an elephant with enough strength. No matter how powerful this expert's spiritual soul was, he could not continue to waste time with Zhuowen like this. Break for me. The expert who had taken over the body no longer held back. Inside Zhuowen's spiritual world, dazzling golden light surrounded his body, and an aura that was as vast as the sea instantly erupted. In an instant, the strength of the expert's spiritual soul reached an extremely terrifying level. Then he threw a punch. This punch was too terrifying. It was as if it could shatter heaven and earth, and it was as if it could destroy anything that stood in its way. Rumble! Suddenly, Zhuowen's spiritual soul was torn apart. The countless spiritual soul sword intents that were attacking the expert who had taken over the body dissipated, and countless cracks appeared on the surface of the Panga banner that was guarding the spiritual world. Crack! Finally, the Panga banner could not withstand such a terrifying punch and was annihilated into nothingness. Uffed! Zhuowen suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His aura gradually weakened, like a patient on the verge of death. Xiao He noticed this scene and immediately rushed to Zhuowen with an anxious look on his face. "Kid, what's wrong with you? Don't scare me." Xiao He was really frightened. He watched as Zhuowen's aura continued to fade. This was a sign of death, and he could not help but cry. Since the beginning of Zhuowen's cultivation, he had been by Zhuowen's side. He had long established a deep relationship with Zhuowen. Now, Zhuowen's aura was collapsing. Xiao He was really anxious. His heart was filled with grief, but he realized that there was nothing he could do to help. Zhuowen's consciousness was becoming more and more blurry, and his spiritual world was collapsing. The expert who had taken over the body in the spiritual world sighed softly and said with a complicated expression, "I really did not expect that a mere ant from the starry skies of the lower realms would be able to entangle with me until now. It's really not easy. However, to be able to die in my hands, you can consider your death a worthy one. You can go in peace." I will accept this body of yours. Zhuowen's vision became darker and darker. He was very unwilling to be taken over by this strange expert, just like that. He still had many things to do. How could he die like this? He was too unwilling to accept this. Zhuowen was screaming and roaring in his heart. Even though he was very unwilling, his consciousness was becoming more and more blurry. He realized with grief that he could not do anything before his death. Right at this moment, a blazing purple light appeared on Zhuowen's chest. Xiao He, who had originally been filled with grief, was surprised to see this scene. He lifted Zhuowen's collar and discovered that it was the mysterious Supreme Stone. Ever since Zhuowen knew that the Supreme Stone had an extraordinary origin, he had tied it around his neck with a string. At this moment, the Supreme Stone was glowing with a mysterious purple light. Then, the Supreme Stone began to float. It actually transformed into a purple light and entered the depths of Zhuowen's glabella. In the instant that the Supreme Stone entered the shattered spiritual world, purple light permeated the air and instantly stabilized his shattered spiritual world. Then, his spiritual world began to reassemble, exuding a faint purple light. However, after his spiritual world reassembled, it actually no longer looked like a starry sky. Instead, it was an incredibly huge purple lake, and the Supreme Stone was floating in the center of the purple lake. The mysterious supreme character inscribed on the Supreme Stone actually exuded a blazing purple light. Zhuowen's spiritual world instantly recovered at this moment. Moreover, he also discovered that his spiritual world had become stronger and more resilient. With his current estimation, he discovered that the strength of his spiritual world had most likely already surpassed that of ordinary half-step heaven-crushing cultivators. It was close to the level of fifth heaven's blight cultivators like Wu Taiji and the three pure ones. This is